Chapter 2116, 2116 Appearance of the Big Dipper Diagram. 2116 Appearance of the Big Dipper Diagram. This shield was a perfect grade Earth immortal dermic treasure. What's the physique of this person? He's so terrifying. Xiao Yun was alarmed. The battle had already broken out, and Su Zimo attacked once more. There was no time for him to think. With a long howl, Xiao Yun channeled his blood qi and withdrew a gigantic axe from his storage bag. He wielded the shield and axe as he fought against Su Zimo. The more Xiao Yun fought, the more alarmed he became. Right from the beginning, Su Zimo did not use any dermic treasures and suppressed him completely with his bare hands. Even then, he did not have any chance to resist. His shield and gigantic axe could not gain any advantage against Su Zimo's body. Both parties had only exchanged 7 to 8 blows when Xiao Yun felt his arm go sore. His teeth were loosened and blood was seeping out of his mouth. The seemingly sickly young man seemed to possess endless strength with every single move he made. Furthermore, the power of every punch and palm strike turned increasingly ferocious and vast as the sea, as though they wanted to devour him and crush him into nothingness. Xiao Yun could not imagine how such a seemingly frail body could possess such terrifying power. Right now, Su Zimo was a grade 10 green lotus true body. Even without using his bloodline, he could fight against a Khanate Earth-grade dermic treasure head-on. He cultivated the Void Thunder Manual and possessed the Thunder Bones. Even without using any blood qi, the power of his punches and kicks far surpassed the past. Xiao Yun had not even cultivated to the Tsunami Blood Realm and was far inferior compared to the Green Lotus True Body with the Thunder Bones. If not for the difference of 2 minor realms, Xiao Yun would not have been able to defend against a single palm strike from Su Zimo. Xiao Yun received a few more punches from Su Zimo, and his bones creaked. If this continued, his bones would fall apart and his organs would be ruptured. Good. Xiao Yun's expression was ruthless as he wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth and glared at Su Zimo fiercely. This trump card of mine was originally prepared for the other Earth Immortal experts. Since you forced me to this point, don't blame me. With that said, Xiao Yun slapped his storage bag. This was a separate storage bag and 4 figures jumped out. Although the 4 figures were similar to humans, they were wrapped in some sort of metal and shone with a dark golden luster. Puppets? Su Zimo frowned slightly. That's right, Xiao Yun hollered. Hold him back. The 4 puppets split into 4 directions and lunged towards Su Zimo expressionlessly. Su Zimo raised his fist and punched a puppet in the chest, sending it flying. Thereafter, he slapped another puppet on the side of the face and sent it flying dozens of feet away. The 2 puppets crawled up rapidly. One of the puppets' chest had already caved in deeply and was almost penetrated by Su Zimo's punch. The head of the other puppet was contorted by Su Zimo's palm as well. However, the 2 puppets were still unaffected and did not feel any pain as they lunged towards Su Zimo once more. This was the terror of puppets. They felt no pain and were not afraid of death. On the other side, Xiao Yun caught a breather and consumed a handful of elixir pills. He began to channel his essence spirit, circulated his immortal arts and secret skills, summoned his dermic treasures, and joined forces with the 4 puppets to launch a ferocious attack on Su Zimo. For a moment, Su Zimo was surrounded and seemed to be struggling. He was in a perilous situation and could not resist at all. Sigh. On the mountain range, a cultivator sighed. What a pity to meet a strong foe like Xiao Yun. Otherwise, I think this grade 6 Earth Immortal has a chance of defeating a grade 8 Earth Immortal. Yes, this person is indeed capable since he dared to take part in the Immortal Sect selection. Unfortunately, he can't hold on any longer. The attitude of many cultivators towards Su Zimo had gradually changed. High in the skies, Heaven Immortal White Sea shook his head. That lad won't be able to hold on for much longer. If he doesn't have any other methods, victory will be decided in another 10 rounds. Heaven Immortal Green Peak said, unfortunate. The moment Xiao Yun released his puppets was this lad's only chance to avoid them and turn to escape. Now that he's surrounded by the 4 puppets and is suppressed by Xiao Yun's immortal arts and divine powers, there's no chance for him to escape. Yang Ruoxu said, even a grade 9 Earth Immortal might not have a chance of winning against Xiao Yun and the 4 puppets. Lu Wenbin, who was standing behind Yang Ruoxu, was indignant. He sneered and muttered softly, even without Xiao Yun, someone like him who doesn't know his place will definitely encounter other strong foes and would be taught a lesson sooner or later. Right then, the situation in the valley changed. The sickly young man shuddered and conjured hand seals repeatedly. Suddenly, a vast star diagram appeared above his head. A large portion of the star diagram was dim. However, the lit area was shocking enough. Stars filled the skies and millions of beams of starlight shone down on the young man. The young man shone with resplendent starlight from head to toe and was like a god beneath the starry skies that could not be ignored. What's that? Could it be a bloodline phenomenon? I'm not sure. I didn't see him activate his bloodline. A series of exclamations came from outside the valley. In the clouds, the gazes of the 4 heaven immortal experts intensified. They stood up at the same time and looked at the scene in the valley with shocked expressions. That's not a bloodline phenomenon. Heaven Abyss shook his head slowly. This star diagram seems to be... Heaven Immortal Green Peak was in deep thought. It should be the Mystic Spirit Big Dipper diagram, Yang Ruoxu said in a deep voice. That's right. Heaven Immortal Green Peak's eyes lit up as he blurted, it's the Mystic Spirit Big Dipper diagram. To think that this legendary astral secret skill would reappear. Senior Brother White Sea? Right then, a disciple of Flying Immortal Sect went forward and said, previously, there was news that a cultivator had indeed obtained Astral Sect's inheritance. Thereafter, that cultivator disappeared. Seems like there's no mistake? Heaven Immortal White Sea burst into laughter. This should be the same person. The 4 Heaven Immortals looked at Su Zimo with a hint of admiration, as though they had seen a treasure. In the valley, Su Zimo summoned the Mystic Spirit Big Dipper diagram, and his combat strength increased exponentially. He attacked once more and tore 2 puppets apart from the middle. The remaining 2 puppets were shattered by him and lost their combat strength. Instantly, the situation reversed. Xiao Yun no longer had any helpers and was left alone against Su Zimo, who had the Mystic Spirit Big Dipper diagram hovering above his head. There was no doubt about the outcome. Su Zimo charged forward and defeated Xiao Yun within a few rounds, snatching all 800-odd coiling dragon badges from the latter's storage bag. Xiao Yun felt aggrieved. He did not know what the Mystic Spirit Big Dipper diagram was, nor did he know what happened. It was as though he had suddenly been defeated by a grade 6 Earth Immortal while he was in a daze. A series of exclamations sounded from the crowd watching from Coiling Dragon Mountain Range as well. Many cultivators discussed excitedly. However, Su Zimo had a calm expression. Although this battle seemed lively, the ups and downs were all under his control. He even revealed the Mystic Spirit Big Dipper diagram intentionally. This way, firstly, his identity would not be exposed, and secondly, he would reveal some capabilities that would be enough to attract the attention of the 4 immortal sections. If Su Zimo truly wanted to defeat Xiao Yun, a single round would have probably sufficed. Chapter 2117, 2117 Demand, 2117 Demand. Above Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, Heaven Immortal White Sea waved his folding fan gently and smiled. Including Xiao Yun's 800-odd Coiling Dragon badges, that lad should have more than 1,200. 1,241. Heaven Abyss opened his mouth and said a number. Nobody doubted the authenticity of that figure. Heaven Abyss did not say much, but he had been paying attention to Su Zimo. Yang Ruoxu nodded slightly. He has the help of the Mystic Spirit Big Dipper diagram. Since he can defeat Xiao Yun, who is 2 minor realms above him, it won't be difficult for him to gather 1,800 Coiling Dragon badges in this valley. In the eyes of the 4 of them, Su Zimo's current methods were enough to rank him among the final 100. This young man might not be the one with the most Coiling Dragon badges by the time the Immortal Sect selection was over. However, to a certain extent, the talent displayed by this person even surpassed others and was definitely not weaker than Princess Scarlet Rainbow or Prince Yunlei. This person was only a grade 6 Earth Immortal, and his potential was way too great. In the eyes of the 4 Heaven Immortals, this young man was the most outstanding, dazzling, and worthy cultivator of the Immortal Sect selection. Suddenly, Heaven Immortal Green Peak said, "Everyone, I've said it earlier on. This lad's movement technique is outstanding, and he's most suited to cultivate an Imperial Wind Temple. Fellow Taoists, please don't fight with me for this person." Fellow Taoist Green Peak, if I didn't recall wrongly, you looked down on him back then and even threw him into Lai Feng's group. You hoped that he would be eliminated as soon as possible. Yang Ruoxu sneered and looked at Heaven Immortal Green Peak, mocking. Why? You want to recruit him to Imperial Wind Temple now? Brother Yang, you must be joking. Heaven Immortal Green Peak's expression did not change. I had my motive for doing this back then. It was mainly to test him and let him reveal his true capabilities. I had no ill intentions. Heaven Immortal Green Peak said such nonsense with an absolutely nonchalant expression. Foo-foo. Heaven Immortal White Sea chuckled. Fellow Taoist Green Peak, even if you tell him that, he might not believe you. In my opinion, Imperial Wind Temple is the least likely sect he will join. Humph. Heaven Immortal Green Peak said proudly, joining Imperial Wind Temple will mean the greatest improvement for him, and we can maximize his advantage to the limits. He's a smart man and will definitely understand this logic. Not necessarily. Heaven Abyss, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly spoke. This lad's physique is all right, and he's also organized in melee combat. Among the 4 immortal sects, Mountain Sea Immortal Sect is the strongest in body tempering. If this lad joins Mountain Sea Immortal Sect, he will be able to cultivate a top-tier body tempering cultivation technique and learn brilliant melee combat skills. That will be the greatest help to him. Heaven Abyss rarely spoke and had always been a man of few words. To think that he would say such a thing in order to fight for Su Zimo. Yang Ruoxu shook his head gently. This lad lacks immortal arts and secret skills while Heaven and Earth Academy has many. In my opinion, the right way is to join Heaven and Earth Academy. Even though Su Zimo had yet to obtain 1,800 Coiling Dragon badges, the leaders of the 4 immortal sects were already fighting for him. The 4 of them knew that if nothing went wrong, this young man would definitely be able to obtain enough Coiling Dragon badges. Swoosh! Heaven Immortal White Sea opened his folding fan and said with a smile, "Let's not argue for now. There's still more than 10 days left, and we can consider it slowly. Since everyone is interested in this lad, the final choice will still be his." Right then, a group of cultivators sped over from afar. The 2 people in the lead had powerful auras and murderous killing intents. They were hostile. Look, Prince Yuan Zhua of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom is here. The Immortal Sect selection this time round sure is lively. Including Prince Yuan Zhua, there are now princes and princesses from all 3 Immortal Kingdoms. Prince Yuan Zhua has more than 100 Earth Execution Guards behind him. He doesn't seem to be friendly. Many cultivators on Coiling Dragon Mountain Range whispered when they saw the commotion in the distance. Heaven Immortal White Sea, Yang Ruoxu, and the other 2 had naturally seen Prince Yuan Zhua a long time ago. However, the 4 of them were expressionless and did not stand up. Prince Yuan Zhua was no longer the same as before. King Jin had many descendants, and a prince or princess without a territory could not compare to them. The fact that the 4 of them could represent their sects to host the Immortal Sect selection was proof of their status in the sects. Even if they were against the powerful and noble Prince Yuan Zhua of the past, they were on par with him, and there was no distinction between seniority. Prince Yuan Zhua came to stand shoulder to shoulder with Lone Star and brought 112 Earth Execution Guards to the skies of Coiling Dragon Mountain Range. He looked down and patrolled the valley, searching for a target. "Your Highness, look, over there." A moment later, Lone Star's expression changed as he pointed to a figure on the water barrier and suddenly said. Prince Yuan Zhua followed the direction of Lone Star and focused his gaze. Indeed, there was a yellow-faced young man in the valley who looked like he had yet to recover from a serious illness. He looked almost the same as the drawing on the back of the letter. Prior to this, Prince Yuanzhua had even suspected if the letter was a trap or if someone was teasing him. However, at this point, he was mostly convinced. "Your Highness, should we step in and ask the four immortal sects for him?" Lone Star sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. "Don't be hasty." Prince Yuanzhua took a deep breath and composed himself, sending a voice transmission. "Get someone to ask around first to find out the background of this young man." This was no small matter. There were millions of cultivators in Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, and everyone was watching. While he could not afford to lose this person, if anything happened, he could not afford to suffer such a loss either. Lone Star hurriedly sent a voice transmission and gestured for the execution guards behind him to head down and ask. Before long, many execution guards returned with the information they had gathered. Lone Star said, "This person's background is unknown and no one knows his name. He suddenly appeared here more than 10 days ago and took part in the Immortal Sect selection midway. He even knows Astral Sect's secret skill. His movement technique is extremely fast. It's said that he knows a divine power of golden wings and is even faster than Princess Scarlet Rainbow's movement technique." Golden wings. Prince Yuan's heart skipped a beat. He had seen Su Zimo release such methods before. Actually, after hearing the first few pieces of information, Prince Yuanzhua was almost certain that the young man in the valley was Su Zimo whom he had been searching for. However, it had only been more than 2,000 years, and Su Zimo had already cultivated to become a Grade 6 Earth Immortal. His cultivation speed was so fast that Prince Yuanzhua could not accept it for a moment. "Your Highness, that should be him," Lone Star said in a deep voice. "Good, good, good." Prince Yuanzhua's gaze was cold as he glared at the figure in the valley and grit his teeth. "Su Zimo, I've finally found you. You almost succeeded. Unfortunately, I was still a step faster than you." Prince Yuanzhua sneered and said in a deep voice, "Let's go and ask the four immortal sects to demand for him." Chapter 2118. 2118 Scheme. 2118 Scheme. Prince Yuanzhua and Lone Star soared into the air with many execution guards and stood in front of the four immortal sections. "Greetings, fellow Taoists. I'm Yuanzhua of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom." Prince Yuanzhua cupped his fists and greeted Heaven, Immortal White Sea, and the others. He looked at Heaven, Immortal White Sea with a slightly more enthusiastic gaze. After all, Heaven, Immortal White Sea was an inner sect disciple of Flying Immortal Sect. Meng Yao was also a legacy disciple of Flying Immortal Sect. Furthermore, he and Meng Yao were siblings. From that point of view, he had some connection to Heaven, Immortal White Sea. "Prince Yuanzhua, how have you been?" Heaven, Immortal White Sea smiled gently and stood up. He closed his folding fan and returned the greeting with cupped fists. Heaven Abyss nodded slightly without standing up as a form of greeting. Yang Ruoxu stood up and returned the greeting. He merely nodded and followed through the motions before returning to his seat. Heaven, Immortal Green Peak did not stand up or return the greeting. He merely smiled and asked, "Prince Yuanzhua, you've come from afar. What brings you here?" There was a hint of mockery in Heaven, Immortal Green Peak's words. If Prince Yuanzhua was still the same as before, he would naturally not dare to do this. But now that Prince Yuanzhua's status had plummeted and he had lost his territory, Heaven, Immortal Green Peak naturally looked down on him. Lone Star's expression darkened, but he did not say anything. Prince Yuanzhua pretended not to notice and smiled. "It's not a big deal. Recently, I received news that a sinner wanted by the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom for many years is in the vicinity of Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, so I brought people over to take a look." At that point, Prince Yuanzhua paused for a moment and glanced at the expressions of Heaven, Immortal White Sea, and the others. Heaven Abyss, Yang Ruoxu, and Heaven, Immortal Green Peak were experienced and expressionless. Although Heaven, Immortal White Sea had a smile on his face the entire time, he did not say anything either. Prince Yuanzhua could not read his mind. When the four of them did not reply, the atmosphere fell silent in an awkward manner. Prince Yuanzhua took a deep breath and could only continue. I want to capture this sinner back to the great Jin Immortal Kingdom. However, out of respect, I still have to greet the four of you. Oh. Heaven Immortal White Sea raised his brows slightly and asked, "Where is this sinner?" Prince Yuanzhua turned around slightly and pointed to a figure in the valley. That's him. The direction Prince Yuanzhua was pointing was where Su Zimo was. Heaven Immortal White Sea and the others frowned at the same time. The crowd below stirred when they saw that. Prince Yuanzhua said hurriedly, "This is the sinner wanted by the great Jin Immortal Kingdom for more than 2,000 years, Su Zimo." The crowd was in an uproar. That grade 6 Earth Immortal is Su Zimo? I heard that more than 2,000 years ago, Su Zimo was only a grade 1 Earth Immortal. How did he cultivate so quickly? That doesn't seem right. I've seen a portrait of Su Zimo from the great Jin Immortal Kingdom before. It seems to be different from this young man's appearance. A commotion broke out from the mountain range. Heaven Immortal White Sea frowned slightly as well. Fellow Taoist Yuanzhua, are you mistaken? There's no mistake. Prince Yuanzhua said in a deep voice. Su Zimo specializes in a disguise technique that's almost the same as myriad transformations. His current appearance is a disguise. Everyone, please give me face and detain this person. I'll be extremely grateful if you hand him over to me to take back to the great Jin Immortal Kingdom. This? Heaven Immortal White Sea had a conflicted expression as he chuckled dryly and glanced at the three people beside him. Yang Ruoxu and the other two did not react, as though they had not heard Prince Yuanzhua. Earlier on, the four of them were fighting to recruit that person into the sect. Now, they had to hand over this person just because of a single sentence from Prince Yuanzhua. How was that different from slapping themselves on the face? In other words, so what if Su Zimo was a wanted sinner of the great Jin Immortal Kingdom? As long as his talent and potential were strong enough, the four immortal sects would dare to take him in. This time round, even Heaven Immortal White Sea did not say anything. The crowd quietened down once more and Prince Yuan's expression turned ugly. Although he had already lowered his status and said such words in front of everyone, Heaven Immortal White Sea and the other three were still unmoved. The discussions in the crowd below were noisy, and even Prince Yuanzhua found them jarring. Finally, Lone Star could not hold it in any longer and harumphed coldly, questioning loudly, "Fellow Taoists, Su Zimo is a sinner of the great Jin Immortal Kingdom. Do you guys want to offend the great Jin Immortal Kingdom just because of a grade 6 Earth Immortal?" Foo-foo. Heaven Immortal Green Peak sneered with a mocking expression. "Commander Lone Star, you sure are impressive. Why? Just because you're an execution guard of the great Jin Immortal Kingdom, you wish to interfere with our four immortal sects? You." Lone Star was speechless and his face turned green. "Humph." Heaven Abyss harumphed coldly. "This is Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, not your great Jin Immortal Kingdom." Heaven Abyss's voice surged like a tsunami and reverberated through the valley, rumbling with a powerful might and will. Not only did Lone Star's question fail to do anything, it even incurred the strong resistance of Heaven Immortal Green Peak and the others. It was not Lone Star's fault as well. The execution guards were used to being domineering and arrogant in the territory of the great Jin Immortal Kingdom. Because Lone Star did not rein it in after leaving the great Jin Immortal Kingdom, he was snubbed. No matter how strong the three immortal kingdoms were or how large their territory was, they could not control the four immortal sects. Prince Yuanzhua knew that he could not be tough if he wanted to resolve this matter. Suppressing the anger in his heart, Prince Yuanzhua revealed a smile once more and cupped his fists. "I was a little reckless. Fellow Taoists, please forgive me. Su Zimo is indeed a wanted criminal of the great Jin Immortal Kingdom and is even related to Feng Cantion. Fellow Taoists, please grant my wish. I'll definitely reward you immensely in the future." Feng Cantion. He was a taboo in the entire divine firmament immortal domain, or rather, a sinner. Even the four immortal sects would not dare to back Feng Cantion. The reason why Prince Yuanzhua mentioned Feng Cantion at this moment was because he wanted Heaven Immortal White Sea and the other three to feel the pressure. After a long silence, Yang Ruoxu shook his head. He's not Feng Cantillon. Even if he is related to Feng Cantillon, it's nothing much. Furthermore, this lad is taking part in the Immortal sex selection in the valley. We can't break the rules and interfere in the process of the Immortal sex selection. Everything has to wait till the Immortal sex selection is over. When he heard that, Prince Yuanzhua frowned. If the Immortal sex selection was over and Su Zimo became one of the last 100 people, he could join the 4 Immortal sects at any moment. Wouldn't that be even more difficult? Yang Ruoxu was clearly stalling for time with his words. Although Prince Yuanzhua realized this, he did not dare to point out his accusation. He looked at Su Zimo in the valley, and the hatred in his heart rose to its limits. He wished for nothing more than to charge into the valley and tear this person into pieces. Suddenly, a thought flashed through Prince Yuanzhua's mind as he came up with a plan. His lips curled into a smile. Since the Immortal sex selection has already begun, and you guys can't interfere, I naturally can't force the 4 of you either. At that point, Prince Yuanzhua paused for a moment before changing the topic. However, I heard that Su Zimo took part in the Immortal sex selection midway? Yes. Yang Ruoxu nodded. Prince Yuanzhua smiled. Since Su Zimo can participate midway, doesn't that mean that as long as the others meet the conditions, they can enter this valley and take part in the Immortal sex selection? As he said that, Prince Yuanzhua turned back and swept his gaze across the 100-odd Earth execution guards behind him. Chapter 2119. 2119 show begins. 2119 show begins. When they heard that, Yang Ruoxu and the other 3 frowned. Given their cultivation and intelligence, the 4 of them could naturally tell Prince Yuanzhua's intentions. Prince Yuanzhua intended to send the execution guards behind him to take part in the Immortal sex selection. That way, the 100-odd Earth execution guards could enter the valley legitimately and hunt down Su Zimo. All 4 of them wanted to recruit Su Zimo into the sect. In the depths of their hearts, they naturally did not want Su Zimo to be surrounded by more than 100 Earth execution guards and die in the valley. They did not want him to fall into the hands of Prince Yuanzhua either. At that thought, the 4 of them fell silent. Prince Yuanzhua sneered internally and asked coldly, "Why? Fellow Taoists, are you guys showing favoritism? So, Su Zimo can take part in it midway but not others?" This time round, the 4 Heaven Immortals did not refute. Prince Yuanzhua was indeed in the right in this matter, and the 4 of them had nothing to say. That's right. Why can Su Zimo enter while others can't? That's not fair. The 4 Immortal sects have to treat everyone equally and not be biased. In the crowd of Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, many cultivators were jeering, afraid that the matter would not be serious enough. Yang Ruoxu sighed internally. Others can naturally take part in the Immortal sex selection as well. However, that lad did not bring a Coiling Dragon badge with him before he entered the valley. No problem. Prince Yuanzhua said immediately, "There's no need for the 112 Earth execution guards behind me to carry Coiling Dragon badges into the valley either." The Coiling Dragon badge had 2 purposes: to protect one's life and to fight for a chance to join the 4 Immortal sections. However, the Earth execution guards only had a single goal for entering the valley: to hunt down Su Zimo. They were all top-tier Earth Immortal experts and were naturally not in any danger against a Grade 6 Earth Immortal, let alone having to protect their lives. Since things had come to this, the 4 Heaven Immortals could only agree given the circumstances. Otherwise, if word of this were to spread, it would mean that the Immortal sex selection was unfair, and it would affect the reputation of the 4 Immortal sects. Heaven Immortal Green Peak asked, "How many people are you prepared to send into the valley, Prince?" "Of course it's all the Earth execution guards I brought today," Prince Yuanzhua said slowly with a sinister tone. "A full 112 Earth execution guards into the valley." This time round, Prince Yuanzhua would not allow any accidents to happen. The 4 Heaven Immortals were silent. Those who could become Earth execution guards were all top Earth Immortal experts. Even a few of such Earth Immortals might be more than what Su Zimo could handle. If he made use of his movement technique, he might have a chance of survival. However, if all 112 Earth execution guards were sent in, It would be easy for them to form an encirclement given their chemistry. At that time, Su Zimo would not even have the chance to escape. Prince Yuanzhua was clearly bent on killing him. Suddenly, Heaven Abyss spoke. If more than 100 Earth Execution Guards enter the valley now, it will definitely affect the final outcome of the Immortal Sect selection and disrupt the balance. This is inappropriate. Heaven Abyss's words were not without reason. The 100-odd execution guards obeyed Prince Yuan's orders. If they entered the valley and joined forces, who could go against them? Fellow Taoists, don't worry. Apart from Su Zimo, these Earth Execution Guards won't attack anyone else after entering the valley. Prince Yuanzhua seemed to have expected that someone would raise this point. He smiled gently and said calmly, as long as we capture Su Zimo, these people will be on standby on the spot and wait for the Immortal Sect selection to end. They won't do anything unnecessary. What fellow Taoist Heavenly Abyss is worried about will definitely not happen. This time round, the 4 Heaven Immortals could not think of any reason to reject. Prince Yuanzhua, please? Heaven Immortal White Sea nodded slightly, indicating for Prince Yuanzhua to give the order. Thank you, everyone. Prince Yuanzhua smiled and cupped his fists in thanks. Thereafter, he turned around and looked at the 100-odd Earth Execution Guards behind him. The smile on his face had already vanished. Earth Execution Guards, heed my orders. Prince Yuanzhua hollered softly. Yes. The 112 Earth Execution Guards echoed at the same time like thunder. However, no matter what happened outside, the cultivators participating in the Immortal Sect selection in the valley could not sense it at all. The water barrier was not only used as a mirror image, but also to isolate sound and vision. Prince Yuanzhua said in a deep voice, enter the valley and split into 10 teams with 11 people each. The remaining 2 people will form a team to search for Su Zimo. After seeing Su Zimo, don't hesitate. Send out a messenger badge and summon the others to gather for an encirclement at the location. This person's movement technique is extremely fast. We can't let him escape this time round. Understood. Many execution guards shouted. Prince Yuanzhua froze again. Remember, I want to capture him alive. The coiling dragon valley beneath was like a cage. In his eyes, Su Zimo was a bird in the cage that could not escape even if he had wings. He hated Su Zimo to the core and would definitely not let the latter die so easily. He wanted to torture Su Zimo day and night after capturing him alive. Furthermore, he had to interrogate Su Zimo about many things, such as the Jade Talisman, myriad transformations, and the divine powers and secret skills of the Golden Wings. Fellow Taoist, may I trouble you to send the people I brought into the valley? After Prince Yuanzhua relayed the order, he said to Heaven Immortal White Sea and the others in a deep voice. Yang Ruoxu hesitated for a moment before waving his sleeves to send the 112 execution guards into the valley. However, he intentionally placed the execution guards in a landing spot furthest away from Su Zimo's location. Even if both parties encountered one another, it might take some time. Actually, Yang Ruoxu and the others knew that given the capabilities of the execution guards, it was way too easy for them to locate Su Zimo in this sealed valley. Such an arrangement would merely delay things slightly. The 112 execution guards entered the valley and split into 10 teams the moment they landed. Most of the teams were Grade 9 Earth Immortals, and their leaders were commanders of the Earth Execution Guards. The remaining 2 Earth Execution Guards were both Grade 8 Earth Immortals. Li Xian, Zheng Mao, you two form a team. An execution guard commander said in a deep voice, don't be in a hurry to attack after meeting Su Zimo. Release the messenger order first. Understood. The 2 of them cupped their fists. Disperse, search for the target. The execution guard commander hollered softly. The 112 Earth execution guards split into different teams and dispersed rapidly in the directions before them, disappearing within the forest. When he saw that, Prince Yuanzhua smirked and clenched his fists with a faint smile. The show is about to begin. The crowd on Coiling Dragon Mountain Range was excited once more. The 4 Heaven Immortals exchanged glances in silence. No matter how much the 4 of them valued Su Zimo or admired his talent, they could not interfere in the Immortal sect selection. That was a serious crime that no one could afford. In other words, Su Zimo could not avoid this calamity. Chapter 2120, 2120 Encounter, 2120 Encounter. Zixin Immortal Kingdom, Capital, Library. A woman in plain clothes and light makeup was holding an ancient book. She stopped in front of a row of tall bookshelves and read intently, flipping a page gently from time to time. Sunlight shone through the window and spilled onto the woman's fair neck, shimmering. She had a flawless side profile and a slender figure. Dressed in a light green dress, she exuded a hint of mystery and elegance in her calmness. Just by standing there, she was stirringly beautiful. Right then, soft footsteps sounded from the side, breaking the peace. Before long, a young girl appeared, panting. She looked at the woman in plain clothes in front of the bookshelves and hesitated, as though she was afraid of disturbing her. "What is it?" the plain-robed woman asked indifferently without shifting her gaze away from the book in her hands. The girl said, "Princess, Su Zimo has appeared." "Oh." When the plain-robed woman heard that name, her expression changed as she glanced sideways and asked, "Where is he?" The girl said, "All these years, you've asked us to pay attention to news of Su Zimo. I just received a message that Su Zimo has appeared in Coiling Dragon Mountain Range and is taking part in the Immortal sect selection." The Immortal sect selection? This person is smart to choose the 4 immortal sects as his backing. The plain-robed woman murmured and smiled, asking, "What's his cultivation realm now?" "I heard that he's a grade 6 Earth Immortal. Furthermore, he entered the valley more than 10 days ago when the selection was about to end," the girl replied. "Grade 6 Earth Immortal. He sure cultivates fast." The plain-robed woman was slightly surprised. "Fast? He's still far inferior to our young prince." The girl pouted her lips in disdain. "I heard that the young prince even views this person as an opponent. In my opinion, he's not even worthy of being a servant for the young prince." The plain-robed woman shook her head with a smile and did not refute. She merely said to herself, "Grade 6 Earth Immortal. Given his capabilities, it shouldn't be difficult for him to join the 4 immortal sections." "That's not for sure." The girl gloated. "Su Zimo might not even be able to leave Coiling Dragon Valley alive, let alone join the 4 immortal sections." "Mm." The plain-robed woman could tell that the girl was implying something. Her beautiful eyes shifted as she looked at the girl inquiringly. The girl said, "I just received news that Su Zimo used a method similar to myriad transformations to disguise himself and hid from the entire world to enter the valley to take part in the selection. No one recognized him at all. However, for some reason, more than 10 days later, Prince Yuan Zhua of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom suddenly appeared and exposed his identity, asking the 4 immortal sects for him." When she heard that, the plain-robed woman frowned slightly in deep thought. The girl did not notice the change in the plain-robed woman's expression and continued, "Because the immortal sect selection is in progress, the 4 immortal sects did not give him over." Prince Yuan Zhua then had the 112 Earth execution guards he brought with him sent into the valley so that they could hunt down Su Zimo. At that point, the girl giggled. "Princess, tell me, how is Su Zimo going to survive?" The plain-robed woman frowned and asked. "The 4 immortal sects allowed more than 100 execution guards to enter the valley to kill. They had no way of refusing. These people entered under the guise of taking part in the immortal sect selection. Since Su Zimo could take part in it, these execution guards naturally could as well." The girl said, "Furthermore, the immortal sect selection has no life and death restrictions to begin with, and cultivators are allowed to fight to the death." "Where's Yunting?" Suddenly, the plain-robed woman asked. "The young prince is still in seclusion," the girl said. The plain-robed woman placed the book in her hands back on the bookshelf and walked out. "There's no need to call him. Prepare yourself and follow me to Coiling Dragon Mountain Range." "Huh?" The girl was stunned for a moment and asked in disbelief, "Princess, you haven't left the library for many years. Are you going to go out today because of a grade 6 Earth Immortal?" "This grade 6 Earth Immortal is unusual," the plain-robed woman said. The girl frowned and said hesitantly, but even if we rush over as soon as possible, it'll take close to 10 days. At that time, Suzimo will probably be killed by the execution guards. Kill him? The plain-robed woman shook her head gently. That person won't die so easily. I have a feeling that something else might happen during this immortal sex selection. As she said that, the plain-robed woman had already left the library. The girl followed closely behind. Coiling Dragon Mountain Range. It had already been 10 days since the execution guards entered the valley, and there were only 5 days left until the end of the immortal sect selection. During this period of time, the execution guards had not encountered Suzimo head-on. Of course, it was because of Yang Ruoxu's arrangement to place the execution guards furthest away from Suzimo. However, everyone knew that as time passed, an inevitable collision would happen. Prince Yuanzhua was in no hurry. Everything was under his control. The 100-odd execution guards formed 10 teams and advanced to search bit by bit. They did not miss any corners and would even gather information from the other cultivators in the valley. When the cultivators in the valley saw the groups of 10 execution guards, they naturally did not dare to challenge casually and would tell the truth about Suzimo. Why are there suddenly so many execution guards? I saw it too. Those people even asked around for the location of a person, the young man who escaped extremely quickly and looked like he had yet to recover from a serious illness. Let's go. Since there's no hope of entering the top 100, let's follow and take a look. Many cultivators were curious when they saw that the execution guards were not hostile towards them and followed behind, wanting to watch the show. Through the water barrier, millions of cultivators watching could clearly see that the 100-odd execution guards were advancing and getting closer to Suzimo. The locations of 2 execution guards were almost identical to Suzimo, and they would meet soon. These 2 execution guards were the 2 outliers, Li Xian and Zheng Mao. The 2 of them were not weak and were both grade 8 Earth Immortals. Suzimo is truly stupid. He even came to take part in the immortal sex selection. He practically dug his own grave. In the valley, Li Xian chuckled. Right now, he's trapped in all directions in this valley. There's nowhere for him to escape. That's right. Whoever among us meets Suzimo will be the lucky one. This will be a great merit, Zheng Mao said. Li Xian pouted. In my opinion, it's unnecessary to send any messenger order. Anyone who sees this person can just suppress him directly. What can a grade 6 Earth Immortal do? Zheng Mao shook his head. Let's follow His Highness's instructions. Don't make decisions on your own. As the 2 of them conversed, a figure sped over from afar. He was skinny and his face was withered, looking extremely weak. It was the appearance that Suzimo had conjured. Zheng Mao and Li Xian's gazes intensified. Heaven Abyss, Yang Ruoxu and the others frowned slightly and their hearts skipped a beat. To the 4 of them, this was a huge test for Suzimo. That was because all the execution guards knew their motive. However, Suzimo, who was in the valley, was still kept in the dark. If Suzimo were to turn and flee, he might be able to buy some time. If he were to fight the 2 execution guards and fall into a bitter battle, he would definitely die. Chapter 21-21. 21-21 Decisive to Kill. 21-21 Decisive to Kill. In the valley, Suzimo was searching for a target in the vicinity when 2 people suddenly appeared in his line of sight. They wore black gold feather armors and had sabers hanging on their waists. Suzimo paused in his tracks and narrowed his eyes. Execution guards. Any Earth Immortal could take part in the immortal sex selection. The execution guards were naturally in that category as well. However, when the 2 execution guards saw him, they stopped in their tracks as well. Their expressions were strange and their eyes lit up. It was clear that they had discovered something. That reaction was very different from the reaction of others when they saw a grade 6 Earth Immortal. In fact, the 2 execution guards did not even release their spirit consciousnesses to check his cultivation before they stopped in their tracks and locked onto him eagerly. They know me. Based on the reactions of the 2 execution guards, Suzimo made a judgment instantly and a thought flashed through his mind. My identity has been exposed. That speculation was way too terrifying and shocking. However, at that moment, Su Zimo no longer had time to think. The execution guard on the left slapped his storage bag and took out a messenger talisman. At that moment, it was already too late to activate his movement technique to get close given the distance between them. In a flash, Su Zimo vanished from the spot. True Dragon 9 flashes. Zhang Mao stared at Su Zimo fixedly. He had just taken out his messenger talisman when he froze for a moment. Where was the other party? Su Zimo had suddenly vanished from his line of sight. Just as Zhang Mao was in a daze, Su Zimo reappeared with a cold expression. He was less than 100 feet away from the two of them. Suddenly, Su Zimo vanished once more. He was gone again? What was that? Teleportation? Zhang Mao's eyes widened and his pupils constricted. On the other side, Li Xian could not react either. Right then, Li Xian seemed to have sensed something and suddenly turned around. He looked behind Zhang Mao and his expression changed, as though he had seen the most terrifying thing in the world. At the same time, Zhang Mao felt a chill run down his spine and his scalp prickled. An unprecedented aura of death enveloped down. Bang! A fair palm slapped the top of his head. The tremendous power penetrated his skull and shattered his essence spirit. Zhang Mao's eyes dimmed. Before he could tear the messenger talisman in his hands, his body went limp and he fell to the ground. Su Zimo released the True Dragon 9 flashes consecutively. While Zhang Mao was in a daze, Su Zimo killed him with a single palm strike without giving him any chance to react. Suppressing the shock in his heart, Li Xian was enraged and withdrew his execution saber with a clang. His blood chi surged as he hollered. Initially, he wanted to say, "How dare you?" However, he merely said a single word when he saw Su Zimo turn around and lunge towards him without stopping after killing Zhang Mao. Die as well. Exhaling, Su Zimo extended his palm and conjured the Great Chaos Essence Palm, suppressing Li Xian's face fiercely. The aura released by the Great Chaos Essence Palm was extremely tragic. The power of distortion and suppression caused the surrounding air to explode in a shuddering manner. Before Li Xian could finish his sentence, he was blocked by that tragic aura. Li Xian was alarmed and circulated his blood chi to its limits. He raised the execution saber with both hands and slashed towards Su Zimo's Great Chaos Essence Palm. Su Zimo had no intention of stopping. "You must have a death wish," Li Xian sneered internally. The execution saber in his hands was unusually sharp and was a perfect grade Earth Immortal dermic treasure. It was not something that a body of flesh and blood could defend against. As an execution guard of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom, his weapon was naturally not bad. Clang! The sound of metal clashing echoed when the execution saber struck the Great Chaos Essence Palm. It was extremely ear-piercing. Impossible! Li Xian was shocked. Before he could react, he felt a mighty and violent power of distortion explode instantly. His hands could not hold on to the execution saber at all, and it flew out of his hands. Given the current strength of the Green Lotus True Body, he could even take on a Khanate Earth-grade dermic treasure head-on. The execution saber could not injure him at all. Su Zimo snatched the execution saber and threw it in reverse. The saber pierced through the black gold feather armor and Li Xian. His heart exploded and his blood chi deteriorated instantly. In the hands of different people, the lethality of the same execution saber was worlds apart. Su Zimo's slash not only pierced Li Xian's chest, but also shattered the black gold feather armor on his body. The violent saber chi even sliced Li Xian's organs into pieces. His body was completely crippled. At that moment of life and death, Li Xian's reaction was extremely fast, and he was prepared to escape with his essence spirit. However, Su Zimo's reaction was even faster. As the saber pierced Li Xian's chest, his palm descended, grabbing Li Xian's face. Essence chi surged and instantly formed a prison. Li Xian's essence spirit could not escape at all and could only stay in his consciousness obediently. Su Zimo's expression was cold and his gaze was sinister as he glared at Li Xian in front of him. As long as he exerted strength in his palm, he could kill the latter. He. Knowing that he would not be able to escape death, Li Xin looked at Su Zimo in front of him and laughed while coughing blood. Su Zimo, even if you kill me, you won't be able to escape. His Highness has already brought people over. Just wait for death. Poof! At that point, Su Zimo no longer had any doubts. Exerting strength in his palm, he crushed Li Xian's head and destroyed his essence spirit. Su Zimo's expression was dark. As he had expected, his identity had been exposed. The worst situation was that Prince Yuanzhua had brought people over. The only person who knew where he went was Astral Rain, the sect master of Astral Sect. His first reaction was that Astral Rain had snitched. However, Su Zimo quickly denied that speculation. If Astral Rain wanted to deal with him, there was no need for him to do anything unnecessary. He could have suppressed Su Zimo back then and handed him over to Prince Yuanzhua. Furthermore, although Astral Rain knew that he was here for the Immortal sect selection, he did not know that Su Zimo had transformed into his current state. However, the two execution guards could clearly recognize him. How could this be? Just as Su Zimo was frowning in deep thought, Coiling Dragon Mountain Range fell into a strange tranquility. Everyone's eyes widened in shock as they looked at the figure in the valley in disbelief. Even Heaven Abyss, Yang Ruoxu, and the other two were shocked. Su Zimo's reaction had exceeded everyone's expectations. He did not escape, nor was he embroiled in a bitter battle with the two execution guards. In just 2 or 3 rounds, 2 level 8 Earth Essence Realm execution guards were killed by Su Zimo on the spot without any chance to resist. His movement technique of flashing twice in succession was impressive. However, what was even more shocking was Su Zimo's calmness and instantaneous judgment. Su Zimo was in the valley and did not know what was happening outside. However, the moment he saw the 2 execution guards, he realized that something was amiss and attacked directly with a decisive killing intent. Even Heaven Abyss, Yang Ruoxu, and the other 2 Heaven Immortals were shocked. Prior to this, Heaven Abyss had even commented that this lad was a little soft-hearted. This exchange of blows allowed everyone to witness how terrifying this person in the valley was. However, no one realized that the terror they saw was merely the tip of the iceberg for Su Zimo. Su Zimo's true fangs and claws had yet to be revealed. Chapter 2122, 2122 Declaration of War. 2122 Declaration of War. Yang Ruoxu, Heavenly Abyss, and the other 2 exchanged glances without saying anything. There were many things that everyone had a tacit understanding. Given Su Zimo's methods earlier on, it was clear that this lad was deliberately hiding his strength. Prior to this, the 4 Heaven Immortals were tempted to recruit Su Zimo into the sect. The stronger Su Zimo was, the more resolute the 4 of them were. Initially, some of the 4 of them were hesitant when Prince Yuanzhua arrived menacingly. But now, the 4 Heaven Immortals wanted to recruit Su Zimo even more. Notwithstanding his methods, his temperament, calmness, and decisiveness to kill were enough to tell that this lad's future accomplishments were limitless. The 4 immortal sects were not afraid of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom. Heaven Abyss, Yang Ruoxu, and the other 2 Heaven Immortals were naturally not wary of Prince Yuanzhua's status. On the other side, Prince Yuanzhua's expression was dark as he looked at the figure in the water barrier. Gritting his teeth, he cursed hatefully, "Too useless trash." The 4 Heaven Immortals glanced sideways at Prince Yuanzhua. Prince Yuanzhua was filled with confidence and boasted arrogantly in front of everyone, only to be on the receiving end of a setback. One could imagine the frustration in his heart. Sensing the gazes of the 4 Heaven Immortals, Prince Yuanzhua realized that he had lost his composure and hurriedly took a deep breath to steady himself. "That's nothing much." Prince Yuanzhua pretended to be calm and said, "It's just 2 Grade 8 Earth Immortals. It's fine if they die. There are still 110 execution guards in the valley. Let's see how much longer he can last." The 4 Heaven Immortals did not reply. However, the 4 of them knew that Su Zimo was still in a dangerous situation. The reason why he could kill 2 execution guards in the blink of an eye was mainly because he made use of a movement technique similar to teleportation to kill them by surprise. As for the remaining 110 execution guards, they were divided into 10 teams and each team had 11 execution guards. Furthermore, there were at least 7 Grade 9 Earth Immortals in each group. This meant that no matter which group Suzumo encountered, he would have to face 11 execution guards, most of them Grade 9 Earth Immortals. The difference in strength between both parties was so great that Suzumo would have no chance of winning once a battle broke out. Even back when the 4 Heaven Immortals were at the level 6 Earth Essence realm, if they were put in Suzumo's current predicament, they would have no way of breaking out of the situation as well. Furthermore, once he fought against one of the groups, the other 9 groups would definitely rush over the moment they saw the messenger talismans and form a trap. At that time, Suzumo would not be able to escape even if he had wings. Although the 4 Heaven Immortals wanted Suzumo to join their sects, there was a prerequisite. At the very least, he had to survive till the end of the Immortal sect selection. Outside Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, a plain and low-key carriage rode through the clouds and entered the crowd stealthily. Such a carriage was extremely common in the cultivation world. Some paragons and monster incarnates would usually travel in flood dragon carriages or birds, ancient chariots, auspicious clouds, and phenomenons. Naturally, carriages as such would not attract much attention. 2 women sat in the carriage. It was the plain-robed woman from the Zixin Immortal Kingdom and her maidservant. Furthermore, all the cultivators in Coiling Dragon Mountain Range were focused on Suzumo in the valley. After a period of silence in Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, many cultivators snapped out of their stupor and exclaimed as well. The clamor was like a marketplace. Suzumo is way too ruthless. Indeed, that Grade 8 Earth Immortal took out his messenger talisman but did not even have time to tear it apart. Fufu, in my opinion, Suzumo is courting death. This way, there's even less of a chance that Prince Yuanzhua will let him off. Within the carriage. After listening for a while, the plain-robed woman understood what happened. Princess, you've studied a lot and know everything. Earlier on, they were discussing Suzumo's movement technique that is similar to teleportation. What is that? The girl asked curiously. The plain-robed woman pondered for a moment. I've never heard of such a cultivation technique in the cultivation dermic formulations of the human race. However, the dragon race has a secret skill that is not imparted to outsiders. When cultivated to its limits, one can flash 9 times in succession. That's amazing, the girl exclaimed with widened eyes. Thereafter, she turned her head slightly and asked in confusion, but how does this person know the secret skill of the dragon race? The plain-robed woman's expression changed, as though she recalled something but did not explain. She reached out with her slender hand and lifted the curtain of the window slightly, looking into the valley. In the valley, the skinny young man with a withered yellow face stood beside the corpses of 2 execution guards. His head was slightly lowered, and he was motionless, deep in thought. Suddenly, the young man raised his head. Right in front of everyone, the young man's figure and face changed rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a tall and handsome scholar. Is that his original appearance? The girl blinked. He does look much more pleasing to the eye now. In midair, Prince Yuanzhua clenched his fists tightly and was filled with killing intent when he saw the face that he hated to the core. Right then, the scholar in the valley did something that shocked everyone. The scholar looked at the skies and raised his palm slowly, placing it beneath his neck in a beheading gesture. This? What's he doing? Is that a provocation? This person is truly audacious. He clearly knows that Prince Yuanzhua is already here, but he still dares to provoke him like this. Is he worried that death won't come soon enough for him? The discussions in the crowd grew louder. Prince Yuanzhua was so angry that he laughed instead and nodded repeatedly. Good, good, good. How dare you provoke me? Once I capture you alive, I'll use all means to torture you. Suzumo, you might not have realized it yet, but 110 Earth execution guards are waiting for you in the valley. The 4 Heaven Immortals had different expressions. Initially, Their impression of Su Zimo was that he was an extremely low-key, cautious, and even somewhat soft-hearted person. But now, this person had become extremely sharp. "Princess, this person is way too arrogant." In the carriage, the girl pouted. He hasn't realized the danger he's about to face and is still in the mood to provoke Prince Yuanzhua? Provoke? The plain-robed woman shook her head gently. "I think that his action is more like a declaration of war." Declaration of war? The girl was surprised and asked, "Who is he declaring war on? What exactly is he trying to do?" The plain-robed woman did not reply and merely looked at the figure in the valley. In the valley, Su Zimo put away the storage bags of the 2 execution guards. Thereafter, in front of everyone, he changed his appearance once more and became a tall and burly man. Su Zimo looked at the skies. Although there was a water barrier and he could not see what was going on outside. However, he knew that Prince Yuanzhua was definitely watching him from outside. Su Zimo grinned at the skies and ran not far away. Chapter 21-23, 21-23 Striking once again. 21-23 Striking once again. In midair. When Heaven Immortal White Sea saw that, he suddenly said, "That's not a bad idea. There's a chance he can break out of this situation." Heaven Abyss and the others nodded slightly. Now that Su Zimo had changed his appearance once more, the execution guards in the valley might not be able to recognize him. Heaven Immortal Green Peak said, however, that Lad's cultivation realm is still at the level 6 Earth Essence realm. That's a flaw. Yang Ruoxu said, as long as he's careful and tries his best to avoid close contact with the execution guards, they shouldn't release their spirit consciousnesses to scan him intentionally. Just as everyone was discussing, someone suddenly said, "Look, Su Zimo is about to encounter a group of execution guards." Everyone was invigorated and looked over hurriedly. In the valley, Su Zimo, who had transformed into a middle-aged burly man, was far from the group of execution guards. The 11 execution guards saw Su Zimo from afar. When they saw that it was a middle-aged burly man, they averted their gazes and did not pay much attention to him. Heaven Abyss and the others heaved a sigh of relief. As long as Su Zimo left silently, he would not be discovered. However, right then, Su Zimo in the valley walked towards the execution guards after seeing them. What was he trying to do? The 4 Heaven Immortals frowned at the same time as a question flashed through their minds. Did he want to test the other party? However, this method of testing was way too risky and unnecessary. Or, the 4 Heaven Immortals thought of a possibility but felt that it was unrealistic unless Su Zimo was crazy. "Princess, look." Su Zimo took the initiative to walk towards the execution guards. Within the carriage, the girl asked in surprise with widened eyes, "What's he doing? Does he have a death wish?" "He's going to kill." The plain-robed woman's beautiful eyes were deep as she murmured softly, as though she could read Su Zimo's intentions. In the valley. After killing the 2 execution guards, Su Zimo thought about many things. He did not know who leaked the secret. He could not figure out right away how the execution guards could recognize him either. However, he was certain of a few things. First, the 2 execution guards were definitely not the only ones in this valley. Since Prince Yuanzhua came personally, he must have brought enough manpower to suppress him. Second, the stance of the 4 immortal sects was unclear. However, at the very least, they were not on the side of Prince Yuanzhua. Otherwise, given Prince Yuanzhua's status, the 4 immortal sects could have handed Su Zimo over without any trouble instead of having to send execution guards into the valley. Furthermore, the execution guards did not have coiling dragon badges with them. Third, if he wanted to break free from the threat of Prince Yuanzhua or the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom, the only way was to join the 4 immortal sects and seek protection. If it was in the past, all he had to do was reveal some of his methods and obtain enough coiling dragon badges. But now that Prince Yuanzhua had brought people over personally, he could no longer hide his strength. He had to reveal his powerful talent, terrifying combat strength, and unlimited potential to attract the attention of the 4 immortal sects. Of course, The secret of the Green Lotus true body could not be exposed. Otherwise, he would be killed no matter which sect he joined. Therefore, the moment Su Zimo left earlier on, he was already prepared to start a massacre in the valley. Him and Prince Yuanzhou were like fire and water. Since Prince Yuanzhou had chased to Coiling Dragon Mountain range with the execution guards and wanted to leave him with no way out, he would not be merciful either. Initially, Su Zimo wanted to transform into the appearance of the dead execution guards. However, he did not understand the two execution guards at all. Even if he transformed into the exact same appearance as them, in terms of voice, habits, and actions, he would still easily reveal flaws. There was a flaw in the Trinity Auspicious Jade's transformation to begin with. That was his cultivation realm. Su Zimo did not intend to hide it from everyone. However, as long as he got close to the other party, he could get rid of them as quickly as possible. There were 7 grade 9 and 4 grade 8 Earth Immortals. Su Zimo walked over and swept his spirit consciousness, quickly checking the cultivation realms of the 11 execution guards. Initially, the execution guards did not pay much attention to Su Zimo. However, they could not help but frown when they saw the middle-aged burly man walking over. Fellow Taoists, you're looking for a skinny cultivator with a withered face, right? Before the execution guards could ask, Su Zimo spoke first and asked loudly. You saw him? An execution guard's eyes lit up as he asked hurriedly. Over there? Su Zimo pointed to the side, but did not stop walking. He got closer and closer to the execution guards and said, There are 2 more execution guards over there fighting against that cultivator. At that point, the many execution guards no longer had any doubts. One of them said coldly, Li Xian and Zheng Mao must be trying to fight for credit. They didn't even release a messenger talisman. In that short period of time, Su Zimo had already arrived less than 100 feet away from the many execution guards. The execution guard commander of the group frowned and did not say anything. For some reason, he felt his heart skip a beat, as though a calamity was about to descend upon him. His gaze landed on the middle-aged burly man, and he swept his spirit consciousness across. Level 6 Earth Essence Realm. That cultivation realm was a little too low to take part in the immortal sex selection. However, this person was rather capable to be able to last till now. Something's not right. Suddenly, as though he recalled something, the execution guard commander raised his head and pointed in the direction of the middle-aged burly man. You are... Before he could finish, Su Zimo's figure suddenly appeared before him. The distance between the two of them was extremely close. Poof! Su Zimo extended his finger and tapped the glabella of the execution guard commander gently. A single finger penetrated that person's consciousness. No matter how high his cultivation realm was, he would die on the spot if his essence spirit was pierced. An uproar broke out outside the valley. It was not only the remaining 10 execution guards. Even the millions of cultivators watching were shocked. Prior to this, no one expected that this grade 6 Earth Immortal named Su Zimo would choose to attack instead of dodging the pursuit of the execution guards. What was he trying to do? Was he trying to challenge 11 execution guards as a grade 6 Earth Immortal? On the battlefield. The moment Su Zimo attacked, it was like thunder. With the help of the true Dragon 9 flashes, he closed in rapidly and killed the execution guard commander of the group with a single finger. Thereafter, his figure flashed once more. At that moment, the other 10 execution guards had just reacted and withdrew their execution sabers one after another. They wanted to attack, but realized that Su Zimo had vanished. Poof! Behind another grade 9 Earth Immortal, Su Zimo's figure appeared and pierced his skull with a finger again, shattering his essence spirit. Another person was killed by the true Dragon 9 flashes. Fast. It was too fast. With the sudden change, the few execution guards were flustered and their gazes could not keep up with Su Zimo's movement technique. In the blink of an eye, 2 grade 9 Earth Immortals died. Swish. The execution guards on both sides of the dead men were shocked. However, they reacted extremely quickly and slashed in reverse towards Su Zimo. In a flash, Su Zimo vanished once more. At the level 6 Earth Essence Realm, His essence spirit was at level 8, and he could already flash 5 times in succession. Including the 2 times he killed Li Xian and Zhang Mao previously, this was already the 5th time. Chapter 2124, 2124 Annihilation. 2124 Annihilation. Form up with groups of 3, back to back. In the chaos, an execution guard shouted. The remaining 9 execution guards moved and formed 3 formations instantly. That way, they could ensure that every single execution guard had their backs facing each other with their blades facing outwards. Those who could become Earth execution guards were all top Earth Immortal experts. After the unified training of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom, they were in charge of punishment and killing and had chemistry with one another. Before long, they regained their composure and formed formations. Although the formation was simple, it was extremely effective. No matter which direction Su Zimo appeared from, someone would be facing him. Indeed, when Su Zimo appeared once more, he was right in front of an execution guard and was extremely close. Kill! The execution guard roared, and his blood chi burst forth with the sound of a tsunami. It surged as he raised the execution saber, slashing down at Su Zimo. Tsunami blood. The cultivators watching were shocked. A grade 9 Earth Immortal channeled his blood chi that was like a tsunami and released a terrifying power that a grade 6 Earth Immortal would definitely not be able to take head-on. Furthermore, the execution guard did not hold back at all and revealed an extremely brilliant saber technique. Instantly, dozens of sharp saber shadows appeared in midair as the saber chi swept towards Su Zimo. The slash counterattack was way too stunning. Not only did it release a terrifying killing power, it even sealed Su Zimo's escape path. The crowd exclaimed. Even the 4 Heaven Immortals nodded to themselves. Given the capabilities of this execution guard, he would definitely stand out as well if he participated in the Immortal Sect selection. As the 4 of them had expected, Su Zimo was able to catch the execution guards off guard by relying on his disguise and taking the initiative to attack. However, as long as the remaining execution guards reacted, they would counterattack violently. At that time, Su Zimo would be in danger. Even if Su Zimo had any trump cards that could defend against that slash, as long as they exchanged blows and there was a slight delay, the remaining 8 execution guards would seize the opportunity to swarm forward. How was Su Zimo going to defend? What a pity. Heaven Abyss shook his head gently and said softly. Although it was commendable for him to take the initiative to attack the execution guard, this lad's actions were way too risky and reckless. It was truly unwise for him to fall into a dead end because of his fervor. Right then, in the valley, Su Zimo turned a blind eye to the dozens of saber shadows that were slashing at him. He did not dodge or avoid and suddenly opened his mouth. Roar! A deafening roar burst forth from the depths of Su Zimo's throat. The roar resembled a dragon's roar and a phoenix's cry as it reverberated through the valley. It possessed a supreme will and seemed to be above all living beings, looking down on the world. Dragon Roar secret skill. The cultivators in the vicinity of the valley were caught off guard and shuddered when they heard that roar. The 9 execution guards in the center of the battlefield suffered an even greater impact. The grade 9 Earth Immortal that attacked shuddered. His blood chi that was initially surging dissipated in a chaotic manner because of the roar. The dozens of saber shadows in midair dissipated instantly as well. The grade 9 Earth Immortal had a pained expression and felt extremely terrible. His blood chi flowed in reverse, and his entire body seemed like it was about to explode. Even his mind was buzzing and blank, let alone attacking Su Zimo. If that was the case for a grade 9 Earth Immortal who had cultivated to tsunami blood, it was even worse for the other 2 who had formed a 3-man formation with him. The body of one of the grade 8 Earth Immortals was shattered on the spot and a blood mist spread. Although the other was a grade 9 Earth Immortal, he did not manage to survive either. Blood oozed from all 7 orifices and he had a dull gaze. His essence spirit was already shattered. The person's exposed skin was filled with blood scars in a shocking manner. Although the remaining 2 formations were slightly further away, The Grade 8 Earth Immortals were also killed on the spot by Suzumo's Dragon Roar secret skill. With a roar, 5 of the remaining 9 execution guards died in the blink of an eye. Although the remaining 4 people were all Grade 9 Earth Immortals, they were injured as well and were in a daze, unable to react for a moment. A single roar shattered the execution guard group. The roar in the valley was isolated by the water barrier and could not be heard from outside. However, at that moment, the entire Coiling Dragon Mountain range was silent. It was as though everyone's throats were squeezed as they looked at the scene in the valley in shock. What just happened? I'm not sure. Suzumo seemed to have opened his mouth, and those people seemed to be rooted to the spot. Immediately after, someone's body exploded. What's that? A sound domain secret skill? Have you seen a sound domain secret skill that can roar a Grade 9 Earth Immortal to death? Even the cultivators watching outside the valley were dumbfounded. In midair, the 4 Heaven Immortals were dumbfounded as well. This Heaven Immortal White Sea had a hesitant expression. Even he was unsure and probed. This is a sound domain secret skill? Probably. Yang Ruoxu nodded and hesitated. That was because even he had never seen such a terrifying sound domain power. In the valley, after Suzumo released the Dragon Roar secret skill, he lunged forward and snatched the execution saber in front of him, slashing in reverse. This Grade 9 Earth Immortal who had cultivated tsunami blood was cleaved into 2 by Suzumo, and his essence spirit was dead. There were 3 left. Wielding the execution saber, Suzumo strode forward and raised his saber. Descending from the skies, he enveloped the remaining 3 execution guards. Splash! It was as though a blood rain had descended from the skies. The 3 execution guards were surrounded by an endless blood sea. In the middle of the sea stood a mountain filled with corpses. Everywhere the blade passed, it let out a buzzing sound, as though malevolent ghosts were crying and evil wolves were howling. A mountain of corpses with a sea of blood, shrouded by the wails of ghosts and the howls of wolves. The blood sea surged and created raging tides that devoured the 3 execution guards. Suzumo's slash was fused with the Azura Saber and Sea Calming Manual. He created many intents with a single slash and stacked them continuously. It was even more terrifying and stunning than the slash of the execution guard earlier on. Relying on the Green Lotus True Body, Suzumo had abandoned his saber for many years. However, his saber technique was still terrifying. The remaining 3 execution guards finally snapped out of their stupor and waved their execution sabers, condensing divine powers to defend. However, Suzumo's saber intent was formed. Coupled with the fact that the 3 execution guards were stunned by the Dragon Roar secret skill, be it their bodies or essence spirits, they were shaken violently and could not unleash even half of their usual combat strength. They could not defend against Suzumo's saber intent at all. In just a few breaths, the 3 execution guards could not hold on any longer. A vicious glint flashed through the eyes of one of them as he channeled a secret skill and burned his essence, spirit, and lifespan. A terrifying potential burst forth from his body as he broke free from the blood sea. When he left the blood sea, he did not attack Suzumo. Instead, he tore the messenger talisman apart right away. A red light surged into the skies and exploded rapidly. After doing that, the execution guard could not hold on any longer and died before Suzumo could attack. The remaining 2 execution guards were devoured by the blood sea as well, turning into corpses at the foot of the mountain. 11 execution guards were completely annihilated. Chapter 2125, 2125 Encirclement, 2125 Encirclement. Millions of cultivators on Coiling Dragon Mountain Range were shocked as they looked at the figure in the valley as though they had seen a ghost. How ruthless! 11 execution guards are dead. Did the entire process even take 10 breaths? I don't think so. These execution guards only had time to release a single messenger talisman before they were annihilated. This scene had exceeded everyone's expectations. Even the 4 Heaven Immortals did not think highly of Suzumo taking the initiative to look for the execution guards. In the eyes of other cultivators, it seemed like he had a death wish and was striking a stone with an egg. However, who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, 11 execution guards, including 7 Grade 9 Earth Immortals, would die on the spot? Was this person truly only a Grade 6 Earth Immortal? How could a Grade 6 Earth Immortal release such a terrifying killing power? Could this person be the reincarnation of a perfected Immortal? In a carriage in the crowd, a girl who looked like a porcelain doll opened her mouth and stared in silence for a long time. Princess, princess, what methods did Suzimo use? How did he kill Grade 9 Earth Immortals with a single sound? A moment later, the girl could not help but ask. The plain-robed woman said, "It should be a sound domain secret skill, but I don't know what it is exactly." Up till this point of her cultivation, she had read countless books. However, if she could not hear that sound, it was impossible for her to guess its origin. In reality, even if she could hear Suzimo's Dragon Roar secret skill, she would not be able to guess it. The Dragon Roar secret skill had fused too many sound domain secret skills and had already evolved into a killing method unique to Suzimo. The girl thought for a moment and suddenly said, "If Suzimo does the same and changes his appearance to get close to the other execution guards, he can still start a massacre. That's going to be difficult." The plain-robed woman shook her head. These execution guards will definitely be prepared when they receive the news. No matter how Suzimo's appearance changes, his cultivation realm will always be at the level 6 Earth Essence realm. As long as they are careful whenever they see a Grade 6 Earth Immortal approach, it'll be difficult for him to succeed. Pausing for a moment, she continued, "Furthermore, although the power of that sound domain secret skill is terrifying, it will definitely take a huge toll on the cultivator, and he won't be able to release it again within a short period of time. He can't use his movement technique that's similar to teleportation either. Without those 2 trump cards, it'll be difficult for him to take on the remaining 100 execution guards head-on." In midair, Prince Yuanzhua had a cold expression and remained silent. The execution guards were slain consecutively in front of millions of cultivators and various factions. That made his face burn. From time to time, cultivators would look over. Every single gaze seemed to be mocking him. Prince Yuanzhua's expression was extremely dark. Even Lone Star beside him felt uncomfortable and consoled hurriedly, "Your Highness, don't be angry. The news has already spread, and the remaining 10 teams are gathering in that direction. That lad won't be able to escape." Prince Yuanzhua closed his eyes and composed himself. A moment later, he opened his eyes and looked at the millions of cultivators below, sneering. A bunch of ignorant fools, shocked by something as trivial as such. Prince Yuanzhua did not hide his voice intentionally, and it spread to every corner of Coiling Dragon Mountain Range. The cultivators who were initially discussing frowned. Cultivators of lower statuses and cultivation realms naturally did not dare to say anything. Some of the sect disciples did not dare to say anything either. Almost everyone in the crowd were Black Immortals and Earth Immortals. Cultivators of the cultivation realms of Prince Yuanzhua and Lone Star were completely invincible here. Furthermore, with Prince Yuanzhua's status, apart from the 4 immortal sects and 3 immortal kingdoms, who else would dare to challenge him? Prince Yuanzhua pointed to the valley and said proudly, "Once we capture Suzimo alive, I'll let everyone witness with their own eyes what sort of torture he's going to endure. I'm going to let the world know the consequences of offending me in the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom. The dignity of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom is not to be challenged." The 4 Heaven Immortals were expressionless and sneered internally. Although Prince Yuanzhua's words seemed like they were meant for the cultivators below, in reality, he was expressing his determination to the 4 immortal sections. In the valley, after killing the 11 execution guards, Suzimo put away their storage bags. He had expected the execution guards to spread the news. In fact, he had no intention of stopping it. Even without the execution guard's message, some cultivators who witnessed the battle earlier on and would definitely inform the other execution guards. In front of everyone, Suzimo acted unusually and did not leave. Instead, he reverted to his original appearance and assumed a lotus position, resting with his eyes closed while waiting quietly on the spot. What's he doing? Why isn't he escaping yet? Is he waiting to be surrounded by the execution guards? Could he be thinking of surrendering? I'm not sure. Every single action of that person is beyond my imagination. When the four Heaven Immortals saw that, their expressions turned grim. Nobody could read Su Zimo's mind. This time round, even the plain-robed woman could not guess. The messenger talisman earlier on had not only attracted the remaining 100 execution guards. In the valley, some cultivators who were confident in their strength and were invincible, or even those who had no hope of reaching the final ranking, rushed over as well. A group of execution guards had been mobilized for an encirclement in the Immortal sect selection. Everyone was curious as to why a single cultivator could attract such a huge lineup. The execution guards are here too. In midair, a young man in luxurious robes had a bright gaze and lightning coiled around his body with a torrential aura. It was Prince Yunlei of the Zixin Immortal Kingdom. Strange, where did that sickly young guard go? Princess Scarlet Rainbow murmured softly in confusion. Thereafter, she pouted her lips slightly. Forget it. I'll watch the show over there first. More and more cultivators gathered over. Before long, a group of execution guards finally arrived. It's Su Zimo. Who you and the others are dead. Be careful, everyone. The execution guard commander in the lead was extremely cautious. He raised his arm and gestured for the execution guards behind him to not get too close. He took out a messenger talisman from his storage bag and tore it apart once more, summoning the other execution guard teams. The remaining teams were nearby and would arrive before long. Su Zimo, are you prepared to surrender? The execution guard commander in the lead asked slowly. Su Zimo was still sitting on the spot motionlessly. In fact, he did not even open his eyes. Commander, sure, what are we waiting for? Let's just go and suppress him. Another execution guard had a fiery temper and could not hold it in any longer. There's no hurry. Wait for everyone to arrive first. Commander Sure said in a deep voice. This man must have some tricks up his sleeves to be able to kill Hu Yu's group. We must not underestimate him. Before long, a second execution guard team appeared. Thereafter, a third and a fourth. The remaining execution guard teams arrived one after another, and the encirclement was formed. Chapter 21-26, 21-26 Divine Power Explosion. 21-26 Divine Power Explosion. In the valley, there were 9 teams left from the execution guards, and there were a total of 99 people. All of them were present and surrounded Su Zimo. Every single execution guard wore the black gold feather armor and wielded the execution saber. Their expressions were cold and they exuded a steely killing intent. Not far away, many cultivators who were taking part in the Immortal sect selection arrived one after another. Among them were the 2 strongest paragons of the Immortal sect selection this time round, Prince Yunlei and Princess Scarlet Rainbow. Given the number of coiling dragon badges you have, you're most likely going to be first this time round, Princess. When Prince Yunlei saw Princess Scarlet Rainbow, he nodded slightly and chatted casually. Although the two of them had met in the valley before, they had a tacit understanding and did not choose to attack each other because they were wary. Princess Scarlet Rainbow was wary of Prince Yunlei's thunder secret skill. Prince Yunlei was not confident of defeating Princess Scarlet Rainbow either, and his movement technique was weaker than hers. There's no difference between first and second. Princess Scarlet Rainbow waved it off nonchalantly. Thereafter, she pointed to the green-robed cultivator surrounded by the execution guards and asked, "That's Su Zimo?" "I think so." Prince Yunlei shook his head. "However, this person is only a grade 6 Earth Immortal. I can't understand why the execution guards mobilized so many people." Grade 6 Earth Immortal. Princess Scarlet Rainbow was slightly stunned in deep thought. Suddenly, Prince Yunlei smiled. "However, this person's guts are not bad. He can still maintain his composure despite being targeted by so many execution guards." Right then, Su Zimo opened his eyes and stood up slowly. "Is everyone here?" Suzimo surveyed his surroundings and asked indifferently, "What are you talking about?" Commander Sure asked with a frown, not understanding why Suzimo would ask such a question. "Are you guys all that Yuan's was sent in?" Suzimo raised his brow slightly. "How arrogant. I alone am enough to kill you." An execution guard stood out with a cold gaze. "Fufu, you must be scared out of your wits, spouting nonsense here." Another execution guard commander sneered. Suzimo did not refute. Instead, he said with a calm expression, "It's good that you're all here. It'll save me the trouble of looking for you guys one by one." The execution guards present were first stunned before bursting into laughter. The cultivators watching in the valley looked at Suzimo strangely as well, as though they were looking at a lunatic. When he heard that, Prince Yunlei could not help but laugh as well and shake his head. "Who does this person think he is? Even I can't escape unscathed against so many execution guards, let alone a grade 6 Earth Immortal like him. Why, you want to challenge all of us as a grade 6 Earth Immortal?" An execution guard commander laughed wildly and asked mockingly, "I'm not challenging you guys." After a brief pause, Suzimo said slowly, "I'll kill all of you and bury you here. Since you wanted my life, you'll have to pay the price for it." Before his sentence was finished, Suzimo roared into the skies and released his innate divine power, the six-tusked divine strength. Behind him, a gigantic divine elephant with a terrifying might vaguely appeared. It had 6 white and sharp elephant tusks and was raising its trunk, roaring into the skies. The divine elephant seemed to have fused with Suzimo's figure. Even at the Earth Immortal realm, Suzimo was unable to unleash the 6-tusked divine strength to its limits. However, 4 gigantic divine elephant tusks still appeared beneath his ribs. With the augmentation of that innate divine power, the power of his body, essence spirit, and bloodline increased by 4 times. Suzimo's essence spirit was at the level 8 Earth essence realm to begin with. With the augmentation of the 6-tusked divine elephant, the power of his essence spirit was comparable to a level 9 Earth essence realm. At that moment, the tremendous power surging within Suzimo's body shocked even the surrounding execution guards. "Attack!" Suddenly, Commander Sure roared. All the execution sabers were unsheathed as the execution guards swarmed forward. "Everyone, watch out. Don't kill that lad. His Highness wants him alive." An execution guard commander reminded loudly. 99 execution guards attacking at the same time. What sort of a scene was that? Even if everyone released a single slash and a divine power each, no one would be able to defend against them. However, because of Prince Yuan's orders, these people restrained themselves and did not dare to use their full strength. Suzimo sneered and channeled his essence spirit to conjure hand seals. Phew! For balls of flames rapidly condensed beside him. The Immortal Dao Fire, Buddhist Dao Fire, Fiend Dao Fire, and Southern Mingli Fire. The 4 balls of flames floated in midair and emitted a terrifying heat. Even the execution guards who charged forward felt their faces heat up. However, that temperature was still within the tolerance of many execution guards. "It's just the light of a firefly." An execution guard commander sneered and channeled his greater divine power, shouting, "Watch my great flood technique." In the crowd, more than 10 execution guards channeled their essence spirits at the same time and released the great flood technique as well. More than 10 greater divine powers gathered and caused the torrent to converge, almost forming a sea. Boom, boom, boom. Turbid waves surged into the skies and poured down like thunder, charging towards Suzimo as though they wanted to devour and drown all living beings. In an instant, Suzimo was drowned by the torrent. Boundless Frost Seal. Commander Sure hollered, and the other execution guards released their greater divine powers, Boundless Frost Seal as well. The many execution guards had a tacit understanding and pushed their strength to their limits. Crack, crack, crack. Under the finger of the execution guard commander, a white frost fog descended rapidly and enveloped the torrent, freezing everything it passed. Haha. I thought that this lad would have some incredible means. So, He's so weak that he can't even withstand a single blow from us." Many execution guards had just closed in and realized that the combat was over before they could attack. The torrent on the ground froze on the spot. Suzimo was frozen in the torrent motionlessly. Even the 4 balls of flames were frozen. On Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, the crowd sighed when they saw that. The 4 heaven immortals shook their heads gently with regretful expressions. The difference was still too great. How could he win against 100 people single-handedly? Furthermore, there was a difference of 2 to 3 cultivation realms between them. "Your Highness, it's done." Lone Star was delighted and heaved a sigh of relief. "Ha ha ha ha." Prince Yuanzhua was relieved and reared his head in laughter. The pent-up anger in his chest was finally released. "This is the outcome of going against me, Yuanzhua, in the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom." Yuanzhua was filled with vigor and shouted, "No matter who you are or where you are, even if you leave the territory of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom, you won't be able to escape the punishment you deserve." Within the carriage, the girl said, "It's over." A miracle did not appear at the end of the day. The plain-robed woman was still staring at the water barrier, frowning in silence. "Princess, what are you looking at?" the girl asked. The plain-robed woman shook her head gently. "Something's not right. The 4 balls of flames don't seem to have extinguished." Divine powers countered one another. Apart from the innate counters of the dermic Daos, it was also dependent on the strength of the caster. The frost of the torrent could indeed extinguish flames. However, flames could incinerate seas and sear the heavens as well. Chapter 2127, 2127 Tragic. 2127 Tragic. Crack, crack, crack. Suddenly, a strange sound came from the battlefield, as though something was about to break through the ice and return to the world. Many execution guards shifted their gazes towards Suzimo, who was frozen in the torrent. "The flames haven't extinguished? What secret skill is that? To think that it can defend against the greater divine powers of so many of us?" Many execution guards noticed something unusual as well and frowned. Commander Schur said coldly, "No matter what secret skill it is, at most, we'll release another round of divine powers and secret skills. How can he defend against all of us alone? Even through attrition, we can exhaust him to death." Buzz, buzz. Cracks appeared on the ice layer with rumbling fog. The boundless ice was about to melt. Many execution guards channeled their essence spirits once more and condensed their divine powers and secret skills, prepared to attack. Right then, beneath the thin layer of ice, the 4 balls of flames around Suzimo spun and collided rapidly, emitting a blinding light. A shuddering aura spread and flames surged into the skies. The ice on the battlefield melted instantly and turned into a surging torrent once more. The Kacharati Dao fire was condensed. Gulp, gulp. Under the envelopment of the Dao fire, the torrent surged in the blink of an eye, and the water surface bubbled with steam. Under the shroud of the fog, Suzimo's figure was faintly visible and became extremely mysterious. From freezing to boiling, it only took 2 to 3 breaths. Under the surging torrent and the high-temperature steam, many execution guards felt suffocated and drenched in sweat in an extremely uncomfortable manner. "Attack!" Commander Schur shouted. Suzimo's expression was calm as a spirit consciousness flame burst forth from his glabella and entered the Kacharati Dao fire. Phew! The ball of flames exploded instantly and spread around the battlefield like a hurricane. The torrent on the battlefield evaporated instantly. The 99 execution guards fell into a sea of flames. The execution guards thought that Suzimo was completely frozen and gathered in the vicinity. None of them were spared when the Pankati Dao fire spread. Ah! A series of tragic cries sounded from the battlefield. The first ones to fall were the level 8 Earth Essence Realm execution guards. The power released by the Pankati Dao fire had already exceeded the limits of what they could withstand. Even if the execution guards condensed any divine powers or secret skills, It would be difficult for them to defend against the damage of the Pankati Dao fire. Under the incineration of the Pankati Dao fire, the black gold feather armor was burned red. The flesh of many execution guards sizzled and emitted thick green smoke when they were burned. Some of the black gold feather armors even melted into boiling molten metal that stuck to the execution guards and could not be shaken off no matter how they rolled. One after another, figures burning with flames fled in all directions with pained expressions, wanting to extinguish the flames on their bodies. However, the execution guards did not manage to run far before they could not hold on and were burned to ashes, leaving only their execution sabers on the ground. Before long, close to 40 of the 99 execution guards were burned to death by the Pankati Dao fire. Such a tragic scene caused an uproar, be it the cultivators in the vicinity or the cultivators watching from Coiling Dragon Mountain Range. All of them were shocked. Prince Yuan's eyes widened with wrath. His body swayed slightly, and he almost crushed his teeth. The 4 heaven immortals could not help but bounce up from their chairs and look at the flames on the battlefield in disbelief. That lethality and destructive power was way too terrifying. Nearly 40 execution guards died in the sea of flames instantly, and even more were severely injured. The remaining dozens of execution guards relied on their higher cultivation realms and robust essence chi to release divine powers and secret skills repeatedly. They managed to survive temporarily. However, some of the level 9 Earth Essence Realm execution guards did not have strong physiques and bloodlines. Their flesh was split open by the Dao fire, and their organs were charred black. Even if they could survive, their bodies would be completely crippled. Right now, there were only around 40 execution guards with combat strength on the battlefield. The others were either buried in the sea of flames, severely injured, or crippled. A series of wails could be heard from the sea of flames. This scene had a huge impact on everyone. The execution guards represented the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom and were in charge of punishment and killing. They were formed by the top Earth Immortals and Heaven Immortals. But now, not only did that fire severely injure the execution guards, it even seemed to have burned the face of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom into pieces. In the valley, the cultivators watching could sense the tragic state of the execution guards even more clearly when they heard the tragic cries on the battlefield. Even paragons such as Prince Yunlei and Princess Scarlet Rainbow had pale expressions at the moment. Put in the same situation, they might face difficulties escaping unscathed from such terrifying flames as well. Set up the formation. Set up the formation. Commander Shur was covered in dust from the burns and was still roaring loudly. His voice had already turned extremely hoarse after inhaling a large amount of dust. As long as the heaven and earth essence chi is isolated, the flames will naturally extinguish. Another execution guard commander shouted as well. Commander Shur and the others slapped their storage bags and took out sets of array flags, scattering them onto the battlefield. Above Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, Lone Star's expression softened when he saw that, and he said hurriedly, "Your Highness, don't worry. The remaining execution guards are all top-tier experts. Although they're all burned, once we set up the Black Light Essence Severing Formation, we can reverse the situation and capture that lad alive." Prince Yuan's expression was dark. His initially clenched fists relaxed slowly as he nodded. Not bad. Although the power of this flame's secret skill is great, the toll on this lad is definitely unimaginable. Your Highness is wise, Lone Star said. At that time, be it in melee combat or spirit consciousness fights, the execution guards will have an absolute advantage. On the battlefield, it's the Black Light Essence Severing Formation of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom. Princess Scarlet Rainbow had a grim expression. When set up, this array formation can isolate heaven and earth essence chi. At that time, one can only use spirit consciousness secret skills or melee combat. Prince Yunlei said, although this flame is powerful, it will be useless. Princess Scarlet Rainbow frowned slightly. Why is that person standing on the spot without any reaction? Why isn't he preventing the execution guards from setting up the formation? The power of that flame's secret skill earlier on must have taken a huge toll on him. Prince Yunlei said, I reckon that this person is already at the end of his rope and is extremely weak, unable to fight anymore. Sigh. He can be considered as a rare paragon with just this flame secret skill. It's truly a pity that he's going to be destroyed in the hands of the execution guards. One after another, array flags tore through the air and surrounded Suzimo. He did not move at all, as though he had indeed lost his combat strength. He did not attack to destroy the formation set up by Commander Schur and the others. He was like a bystander, watching quietly as Commander Schur and the others dug the array flags into the ground and surrounded him. Suzimo's expression was calm as he watched Commander Schur and the others enter the formation. Gradually, an imperceptible mocking look appeared in his eyes. Chapter 2128, 2128, End of the Road? 2128, End of the Road. Suzimo possessed the Green Lotus True Body and the Creation Lotus platform. Naturally, he would not exhaust the power of his essence spirit by releasing a single Pankati Dao fire. The reason why he did not stop them was because there was no need. The reason why more than 10 execution guards died outside Songyu City was because of the black light essence severing formation. For the remaining execution guards, the setup of this array formation was a trap for themselves. However, the execution guards did not realize the danger at all. When everyone saw Suzimo motionless, they thought that the outcome was set. Above Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, Prince Yuan's seemed to have thought of something and suddenly frowned. "Your Highness, what's wrong?" When Lone Star saw the strange expression on Prince Yuan's face, he asked hurriedly, "The black light essence severing formation has been set up and the flames have been extinguished completely. You don't have to worry, Your Highness." "Lone Star, do you remember the dozens of execution guards who died outside Songyu City a few months ago?" Prince Yuan's suddenly asked. Lone Star nodded and said, "I remember. Those execution guards seem to have been killed by the 2 people hunted down by Princess Mingyao. In the end, they were burned to ashes without anything left behind." "Something's not right." Prince Yuan's shook his head slowly and glared at Suzimo in the valley, saying hatefully, "Burned to ashes. Can't you tell who was the one who created a fire of that level?" Lone Star's heart skipped a beat. "Your Highness, you mean to say that Suzimo killed those people? Even if he didn't kill them, he must have been present." Prince Yuan's said coldly, "He was the one who set the corpses of the execution guards on fire." Initially, Prince Yuan's had not thought that Suzimo was the one who did it. After all, more than 2,000 years ago, Suzimo was only a Grade 1 Earth Immortal. Even if Prince Yuan's knew that Suzimo had already cultivated to become a Grade 6 Earth Immortal, he could not imagine how a Grade 6 Earth Immortal could kill more than 10 execution guards. But now that he had witnessed Suzimo's methods personally, he finally connected the dots. In the valley, afraid that Suzimo would escape, the few execution guard commanders even set up 4 black light essence severing formations in the surroundings that were connected tightly, trapping Suzimo within. The remaining 40-odd execution guards with combat strength walked slowly towards Suzimo with murderous auras. Although Commander Schur blocked the damage of the Pankati Dao fire, he was covered in dust and looked wretched. "Suzimo." Commander Schur's gaze was cold as he said slowly, "You killed so many execution guards of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom. Even if I slice you into pieces, it won't be enough to appease the hatred in my heart. Suzimo, after I suppress you, I'll deal with you personally and let you have a taste of my methods. I'll let you know what it means to live a life worse than death." Another execution guard said through gritted teeth. The other execution guards were filled with hatred as well. They had never suffered such a huge loss before. Furthermore, it was in front of everyone. Even if they captured Suzimo alive today, the reputation of the execution guards would be greatly reduced. This battle was a huge humiliation for them. "Oh." Surveying his surroundings, Suzimo looked at the execution guards that were approaching and said indifferently, "You guys don't seem to understand the situation, and you still want to suppress me? Haha." An execution guard commander burst into laughter. "Suzimo, I'm sure you've never seen the black light essence severing formation before and don't know its power. This formation isolates heaven and earth essence chi. No matter how many divine powers and secret skills you have, you won't be able to release them. Suzimo, you're already at the end of the road. There's no need to continue pretending. Many execution guards sneered, thinking that the outcome was decided. Is that so? Suzimo asked instead, and his gaze intensified. In a flash, he lunged forward and attacked. How dare you? The two execution guards at the front were long prepared. With a furious roar, they withdrew their execution sabers and slashed towards Suzimo. The blades howled with a chilling intent. With a cold flash, the two execution sabers slashed in front of Suzimo, a hair's breadth from him. However, Suzimo did not dodge or avoid. In a flash, he suddenly extended his hands and grabbed the two execution sabers barehanded. You must have a death wish. The two execution guards channeled their blood chi hurriedly, wanting to crush Suzimo's palms. However, they realized that Suzimo's palms were like two iron hoops that bound the execution saber tightly, and they could not move at all. The two execution guards widened their eyes in shock. A body of flesh and blood could defend against a divine weapon like the execution saber. Let go. Right then, Suzimo hollered and suddenly exerted strength in his palms, snatching the two execution sabers from their palms. Thereafter, Suzimo tossed them backwards. The two execution sabers transformed into two cold beams of light that tore through the air and arrived instantly, arriving before two execution guards behind him. That move was way too sudden. Nobody expected Suzimo to snatch the execution sabers with ease and counterattack without any pauses. The two execution guards at the back reacted extremely quickly as well. Their eyes widened as they exhaled and raised their execution sabers, slashing towards the cold light in front of them. Clang! The execution sabers collided and rubbed against one another, creating blinding sparks. The two execution guards shuddered, and their expressions changed. Although Suzimo seemed like he was throwing them casually, they contained an incomparably terrifying power. Although he was a grade 6 Earth Immortal, his physical strength had increased by 4 times after he released the 6-tusked Divine Elephant. Coupled with the Green Lotus True Body and the Thunder Bones, none of the execution guards present could take the burst of that power head-on. The two execution guards raised their execution sabers and collided with the incoming sabers. Not only did they fail to knock the sabers down, the saber in their hands was even repelled. They were now wide open. The two execution sabers pierced the faces of the two execution guards, and their essence spirits were destroyed, dying on the spot. On the other side, Suzimo did not pause after throwing out the two execution sabers and charged forward. The two execution guards at the front had their execution sabers snatched away and their bodies were brought over. Suzimo reached out with both hands and pushed down on the heads of the two execution guards at the front. Crack! The necks of the two execution guards before him snapped. Suzimo pushed their heads down along their necks and stuffed them into their chests. Their essence spirits were long shattered as they fell to the ground weakly. Charging forward, snatching the sabers, tossing the sabers, attacking. The entire process was fluid as water and clean. Although it sounded slow, in the blink of an eye, for execution guards died on the spot. The other execution guards were about to advance when they realized that 4 more people had died on their side. End of the road? Suzimo smiled faintly. Sorry to disappoint you guys. Commander Sure and the others felt chills run down their spines when they saw Suzimo smile. Their confidence and arrogance earlier on had vanished completely. Surveying his surroundings, Suzimo nodded and said, "It's all thanks to everyone for setting up the black light essence severing formation. That saves me some effort. Since it's your goodwill, I'll accept it." The moment he said that, Suzimo attacked once more and created another bloodstorm. Chapter 2129, 2129 Massacre. 2129 Massacre. Relying on the Green Lotus True Body, the Thunderbones, and the 6-tusked Divine Strength, Suzimo was able to sweep through his peers in melee combat even without the use of blood chi. Right now, the Green Lotus True Body was equivalent to a Grade 10 Creation Green Lotus. Even a Khanate Earth-grade Dermic Treasure could not hurt him. Furthermore, Suzimo's melee offensive skills were fused with the mystic classic of the 12 Demon Kings of the Great Wilderness. Coupled with the offensive skills of the dragon race and his many years of experience in killing, his attacks were as violent as a storm and his strength burst forth like a volcano. Suzimo had practiced killing to its limits in melee combat. Although the execution guards present wielded the execution saber and wore the black gold feather armor, they could not defend against them at all. Suzimo charged into the crowd like a ferocious tiger descending a mountain or a wolf entering a flock of sheep. Charging left and right, he crushed the remaining execution guards with ease. Suzimo's hands, elbows, shoulders, crotch, legs, knees and feet were all killing weapons. Her fair and tender hands alone could transform into fists like hammers, fingers like swords and palms like sabers. Every single change could kill. The dozens of execution guards were top Earth Immortal experts who were fully armed, but they could not gain any advantage against Suzimo. The cultivators watching from the valley winced in shock with widened eyes. That person looks refined and scholarly. However, he doesn't show any mercy when he fights. He seems to have countless traces of ferocious beasts on his body. Princess Scarlet Rainbow was secretly speechless and murmured. Prince Yunlei had a grim expression as well. This person's melee offensive skills are way too ferocious, and he's filled with weapons from head to toe. In fact, I suspect that a single hair of this person can be used to kill. They were the two most famous paragons with the strongest combat strength in this immortal sect selection. However, at that moment, both of them were wary after witnessing Suzimo's methods. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, the two of them would not have believed that a Grade 6 Earth Immortal could release such terrifying combat strength on the battlefield. In less than 10 breaths, 18 of the 40 execution guards died. Activate your Essence Spirit secret skills and we'll join forces to kill him. At this critical juncture, Commander Sure finally made a decision. He no longer held back or hoped to capture Suzimo alive. This decision was against Prince Yuan's orders, and he would definitely be severely punished. However, if they held back, all of them would die here. This battle no longer had anything to do with orders, pride, or dignity. It was only about life and death. Only the victor would be able to leave alive. The moment Commander Sure said that, a powerful spirit consciousness fluctuation burst forth from the battlefield. The remaining 22 execution guards glared at Suzimo, and their glabella shone. Almost at the same time, they released their Essence Spirit secret skills without holding back. Suzimo had a fearless expression. After the 6-tusk divine strength, the power of his Essence Spirit was not weaker than a Grade 9 Earth Immortal. A dragon scale appeared in midair with a shuddering aura. Although many spirit consciousness secret skills collided with the dragon scale in silence, the entire world seemed to have stopped. Only the water barrier above the valley swayed slightly with a ripple. The millions of cultivators watching from Coiling Dragon Mountain Range felt their hearts skip a beat as they glared at the battlefield nervously. Essence Spirit fights were the most dangerous, and one could die if they were careless. The 4 Heaven Immortals were tense. Previously, they knew that Suzimo's Essence Spirit realm was very high. However, he was most likely doomed if he wanted to fight against the Essence Spirit secret skills of the 22 execution guards. When the dragon scale appeared, the plain-robed woman in a carriage in the crowd suddenly blurted, "Reverse scale." What? The girl in the carriage was almost entirely focused on the battlefield and did not hear it clearly, asking instinctively. The plain-robed woman murmured softly, "Someone's going to die." At the same time, in the valley, cracks appeared on the dragon scale that floated in midair before shattering. Of the 22 Essence Spirit secret skills of the execution guards, only 12 were shattered. The remaining 10 charged towards Suzimo. It was over. A sigh sounded from Coiling Dragon Mountain Range when they saw that. To think that this person would not be able to escape the final attack of the execution guards. As a grade 6 Earth Immortal, he fought till this point with the execution guards and even killed so many of them. Even if he dies, it's with pride. Even if he manages to survive after killing so many execution guards, he won't have a good life in the future either. It's a good outcome for him to die happily with his essence spirit destroyed. Discussions were already starting in the crowd. However, in midair, the 4 Heaven Immortals, Prince Yuanzhua, Lone Star, and the others with sharp eyes did not say anything. They were still looking at the battlefield, and the shock in their eyes intensified. Thud, thud. On the battlefield, 12 execution guards had dim gazes and listless faces. They fell stiffly to the ground, and their life force drained rapidly. They were already dead. The essence spirit secret skills of the 12 execution guards collided with the reverse scale, and the essence spirits in their consciousnesses could not escape its killing power. Anyone who touched the reverse scale of a dragon would die. Many cultivators watching were dumbfounded and could not react to what happened. Su Zimo conjured hand seals and released another essence spirit secret skill. A golden Sanskrit word talisman floated out slowly from his glabella and charged towards the remaining 10 essence spirit secret skills. The Gautama dermic seal. Another 5 of the 10 essence spirit secret skills shattered. Immediately after, Su Zimo touched his glabella gently with his finger and lightning flashed. A whip surrounded by electric arcs was pulled out from his consciousness and whipped the remaining 5 essence spirit secret skills. Spirit Vanquishing Whip. The essence spirit secret skills of both parties collided and dissipated. The battlefield was filled with endless chaotic spirit consciousnesses. The remaining 10 execution guards grunted and blood drained from their faces. Although the Gautama dermic seal and Spirit Vanquishing Whip were strong, they did not have the terrifying killing power of the reverse scale. The essence spirits of Commander Sure and the others suffered different impacts and were not at the point of death. Of course, in the fight between essence spirits, Su Zimo's consciousness was also affected by the impact of the strong spirit consciousnesses. However, the Green Lotus essence spirit sat on the Creation Lotus platform with 90 green lotus seeds surrounding it, blocking most of the impact from the spirit consciousnesses. Although the Green Lotus essence spirit had expended a lot of energy and did not have much power left, it was not injured. Another 12 of the remaining 22 execution guards were dead. The remaining 10 execution guards were also injured. This time round, they were not only injured from the Pankati Dao fire, their essence spirits were injured as well. Su Zimo had the absolute advantage in this essence spirit fight. The plain-robed woman was not surprised by this. Back then, even the Ice Soul silver armor that she gave Yun Ting to protect his essence spirit was crippled. It was clear how lethal this person's essence spirit was. Chapter 2130. 2130 Mouthful of Blood. 2130 Mouthful of Blood. The remaining 10 execution guards were scared out of their wits. Almost at the same time, the remaining 10 execution guards could not care less about their dignity or orders and turned to flee out of the black light essence severing formation. Commander Sure and the others were completely scared. There were more than 100 execution guards on this trip, and there were only 10 left. The rest were either dead or injured in an extremely tragic manner. Who else would dare to attack Su Zimo? Staying alive was the only thought on the minds of Commander Sure and the others. The 10 of them turned and fled. Su Zimo's movement technique was even faster. Stomping his feet on the ground, the earth shook and he tore through the air like an arrow, buzzing. Bang! An execution guard was caught by Su Zimo and smashed into pieces, dying on the spot. Su Zimo did not stop in his tracks and changed directions, chasing after another execution guard. Before long, Su Zimo caught up to the second execution guard and pierced the back of his head with a single finger. His essence spirit was destroyed and he died. The remaining execution guards were scared out of their wits and could not unleash even half of their peak combat strength, let alone with their essence spirits injured. Su Zimo chased like he was chopping vegetables, and no one could defend against him for a moment. Although Commander Sure and the others fled in different directions, without Essence Chi in the Black Light Essence Severing Formation, they could only use the power of their bodies to sprint. How could they compare to Su Zimo's speed? By the time Commander Sure escaped from the Black Light Essence Severing Formation, he realized that 7 of the 10 people had been killed by Su Zimo. Including Commander Sure, there were only 3 people who managed to escape. The 3 of them exchanged glances with horrified expressions and felt bitter when they saw one another's tragic state. The high spirits and steely killing intent they had when they first entered the valley had long vanished. Right now, the 3 of them were flustered like stray dogs. Thankfully, after leaving the range of the Black Light Essence Severing Formation, the 3 of them could activate their essence spirits and use Heaven and Earth Essence Chi to release movement techniques and divine powers to escape from this place. Swoosh! A golden light tore through the air and arrived instantly. Right in front of Commander Sure, one of the 3 execution guards was pierced by the golden light and his body exploded, dying instantly. The golden light that appeared was Su Zimo, who had released his extreme speed divine power with the wings of a rock behind him. "It's really him," Princess Scarlet Rainbow exclaimed. When she saw that Su Zimo was only a grade 6 Earth Immortal, Princess Scarlet Rainbow had her doubts. However, on second thought, the sickly young man she encountered merely had an extremely fast movement technique. How could he have such terrifying methods? But now, she was certain when she saw Su Zimo use the Golden Wings secret skill. At the same time, Princess Scarlet Rainbow felt a sense of trepidation. If this person had not chosen to avoid the battle back then, even she would have died here. When Commander Sure and the other execution guards saw that, they turned to flee in 2 completely different directions without hesitation. Su Zimo chased after one of them. At the same time, he slapped his storage bag and his robes fluttered, throwing out dozens of black shadows that surrounded Commander Sure. The dozens of black shadows landed on the ground and formed a familiar array formation. Commander Sure barged into the formation and suddenly felt his essence chi depleted. He fell and could not help but exclaim, "Black Light Essence Severing Formation." Su Zimo also had the array flags of the Black Light Essence Severing Formation. On the way from Tsangyu City to Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, he had long refined the array flags for his own use. Ah! A tragic cry sounded not far away. After killing another person, Su Zimo turned towards Commander Sure. Naturally, the Black Light Essence Severing Formation could not trap Commander Sure. However, that momentary delay was enough for Su Zimo to double back. Commander Sure had just charged out of the Black Light Essence Severing Formation when he bumped into Su Zimo, who was filled with killing intent. "Su Zimo, why you killed so many execution guards? You?" Commander Sure's heart skipped a beat, and his voice trembled slightly. Bang! Unfortunately, Su Zimo was not interested in listening to him. Without a word, he strode forward and slapped the top of Commander Sure's head, shattering his essence spirit. At this point of the battle, the 112 execution guards were completely annihilated. There were also some execution guards who were severely injured and lost their combat strength but did not die. They were scared out of their wits and trembled on the spot. They were already fish on a chopping board and were at his mercy. Su Zimo walked towards the execution guards expressionlessly. Their fates were already decided. Since he had already attacked, Su Zimo would not show mercy or leave any future troubles. Above Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, the 4 Heaven Immortals let out a long breath. Unknowingly, the 4 of them had stood up from their seats. Now that the dust had settled, their expressions relaxed and their hearts calmed down before they sat back down slowly. Although the 4 Heaven Immortals looked calm, they were emotional when they witnessed this battle personally. He was way too strong. Initially, the 4 Heaven Immortals thought that Su Zimo was merely the most outstanding paragon in the Immortal Sect selection and a promising talent. It was only at that moment that the 4 Heaven Immortals realized that Su Zimo might be the most terrifying monster incarnate in the past 10,000 or even 100,000 years. A monster incarnate like that was in existence that could support an entire sect single-handedly. They had to do their best to recruit this person into their sects. As for the feud between this person and Prince Yuanzhua, the four heaven immortals did not take it to heart. At the thought of Prince Yuanzhua, the four heaven immortals glanced sideways. Not far away, Prince Yuanzhua stood in midair, and his body trembled slightly. He glared at the figure in the valley with eyes that seemed like they could spew fire. If Lone Star had not held him back, he might have even charged down recklessly. At that moment, Su Zimo was cleaning up the battlefield. All the severely injured execution guards were killed by him. At this point, there was no room for negotiation. It was either him or them who would be walking out alive. Fellow Taoists, you saw it too. Prince Yuanzhua pointed at Su Zimo in the valley and grit his teeth, saying coldly, "This lad is so arrogant and conceited, looking down on me as though I'm nothing. Fellow Taoists, please remove the formation outside the valley and let me charge in to tear this lad into pieces." Fufu, Heaven Immortal Green Peak chuckled. "Prince Yuanzhua, please calm down. This arrangement was your decision back then and has nothing to do with us." Prince Yuanzhua, the immortal sect selection is not over yet. We can't dispel the formation. Yang Ruoxu said. Furthermore, heaven immortals are not allowed to interfere directly in the immortal sect selection. But my men are all dead. Prince Yuanzhua was already a little hysterical as he roared at the four heaven immortals. More than 100 execution guards of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom died inside. You asked for it. Heaven Abyss said slowly. You. Prince Yuanzhua was enraged and glared at Heaven Abyss, almost attacking. Thankfully, Lone Star stopped him. However, the forceful suppression of his rage caused him to be extremely worked up. Finally, he could not hold on any longer and spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 2131, 2131a Fat Pawn. 2131a Fat Pawn. More than 100 execution guards were annihilated and Coiling Dragon Mountain Range was already noisy. Many cultivators discussed fervently with flushed faces. This battle had an extremely strong impact on many cultivators. Prior to this, who would have believed that a Grade 6 Earth Immortal would dare to attack and kill execution guards? Who would believe that a Grade 6 Earth Immortal could bury more than 100 execution guards? This battle was even more intense and shocking than the immortal sect selection that had lasted for almost a year. This was a direct challenge to the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom. This was a head-on declaration of war against Prince Yuanzhua. Some people gloated and concluded that Su Zimo was definitely doomed. Some people were disdainful. Su Zimo's actions were like striking a stone with an egg. If he wanted to fight against the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom, it was akin to an ant trying to shake a tree. Some people felt pity that such a paragon was about to die before he could truly grow. Within the carriage, the girl gradually composed herself. Su Zimo is indeed very powerful and can even defeat Prince Yunlei. However, he's still not a match for Prince Yunting. Before Prince Yunting entered seclusion this time round, he was already a Grade 9 Earth Immortal. If he can come out of seclusion this time round, there's a high chance he can break through to the Heaven Immortal realm. That's different. The plain-robed woman shook her head. Apart from his talent, the reason why Yunting's cultivation speed is so shocking is because he's focused on cultivating the Tao of the Sword and won't be distracted. However, Su Zimo's knowledge is extremely varied. From his attack earlier on, we can tell that he has dabbled in the methods and secret skills of immortals, Buddhas, fiends, and even some demons. In fact, he has a deep understanding of them. That's too difficult. You have to understand that a person's energy is limited. It's difficult to cultivate many different dermic Taos to their peak, and it will take 10 or 100 times more time to raise one's cultivation realm. It's understandable for this person to cultivate the dermic Taos of the immortal, Buddhist, and fiends. However, it's truly impressive that he's able to cultivate the secret skills of the demon race to such an extent. Even now, I'm curious as to what physique he has. The plain-robed woman praised Su Zimo immensely through her words. However, I feel that Su Zimo definitely can't compare to Prince Yunting given the methods he displayed. The girl said, Prince Yunting has obtained 2 more inheritances over the years and is much stronger than before. How do you know that he has no other methods? The plain-robed woman asked with a fake smile. Ah, the girl was stunned for a moment. This person still has more trump cards? That's impossible, right? The plain-robed woman smiled faintly. Everything else aside, have you seen him use any dermic treasures? This? The girl hesitated for a moment and said sheepishly, perhaps he doesn't have any dermic treasures? The plain-robed woman looked at the figure in the valley and remained silent for a moment before saying slowly, from what I know, he has an incredible dermic treasure with an extremely powerful background. This person is unfathomable. Even I can't see through him. He might be Yunting's greatest opponent in the future. In the valley, right in front of many cultivators, Su Zimo cleaned up the battlefield and put away the storage bags of the execution guards. There might not be any supreme treasures in the storage bags of the execution guards. However, there were many cultivation resources like essence spirit stones and major essence condensation pills. Su Zimo had just experienced a huge battle and seemed to be exhausted. However, no one dared to fight him for any items. Even an existence like Prince Yunlei did not want to have a conflict with Su Zimo. After tidying up the battlefield, Su Zimo turned to leave and many cultivators avoided him hurriedly. Only Princess Scarlet Rainbow rode on her flying sword and arrived before Su Zimo, blocking his path forward. Hey! Princess Scarlet Rainbow raised her head slightly. Since you're so powerful, I guess it'll be rough on you if you have to be my guard. How about this? I'll invite you as a guest who will stay by my side. There will be no hierarchy between us. Furthermore, I can share many of my cultivation resources with you. How about that? Su Zimo raised his head and glanced at Princess Scarlet Rainbow indifferently, asking, I killed so many execution guards and destroyed one of Yuan's clones. Right now, he's waiting outside to kill me. Can you protect me? Princess Scarlet Rainbow was momentarily speechless. Although she was a princess of the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom, she was only an Earth Immortal after all. Her status among the princes and princesses of the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom was not too high. It was not to the extent where she could go against Prince Yuanzhua because of an outsider. Su Zimo had long expected this outcome and was not surprised. He circled around Princess Scarlet Rainbow and continued forward. Princess Scarlet Rainbow pouted her red lips and looked at Su Zimo's back view huffily, feeling aggrieved. It was not because she was afraid of Prince Yuanzhua or because she did not want to protect Su Zimo. However, right now, she truly did not command enough power in the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom to fight against a Grade 9 Heaven Immortal expert like Yuanzhua. The reason why she took part in the Immortal Sect selection this time round was also because she wanted to make use of the 4 Immortal Sects to achieve a meteoric rise in status. As Su Zimo advanced, he thought about what might happen after the Immortal Sect selection ended. There were 5 more days before the selection ended. At that time, he would have to face the enraged Prince Yuanzhua. Even Su Zimo could not be sure what would happen then. His choice was also a gamble that the 4 immortal sects were not afraid of offending the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom. As long as an immortal sect was willing to take him in, he could resolve the crisis 5 days later. Of course, the most important thing for him right now was to gather enough coiling dragon badges. He had more than 1,200 coiling dragon badges with him. If he wanted to secure a spot in the top 100, he would have to gather 1,800. 4 hours later, on a mountain peak, Lai Feng led more than 100 cultivators to rest and recuperate. Boss Lai Feng, I heard that the execution guards went over that side to kill someone called Su Zimo. Many cultivators went over to watch the battle. Someone said. Lai Feng acknowledged and did not reply. When another person heard that, he came over and asked, Boss, why don't we take a look over there and watch the show? Watch the show. Lai Feng sneered. I reckon that Prince Yunlei, Princess Scarlet Rainbow, and all the ruthless people in the valley must have gone over for such a huge commotion. Aren't you afraid of losing our lives if we go and watch the show now? You are right, boss. Immediately, a cultivator flattered with a smile. Right then, the cultivator pointed not far away and said, "Boss, look, a grade 6 Earth Immortal is coming over. He's alone." That sickly invalid? Suddenly, Lifephone was invigorated as he bolted upright and looked over. He had been brooding with pent-up anger when he thought about how he lost that sickly invalid earlier on. It's not the same person. However, this person must be a juicy piece of meat to be able to last until now. Shall we attack? The person licked his lips with a searing gaze. Is there a need to ask? Lifephone waved it off. I'll leave this person to you guys. You guys can split the coiling dragon badges you snatch among yourselves. I've got enough of them. Chapter 2132. 2132 You're not worthy of challenging me. 2132 You're not worthy of challenging me. Coiling Dragon Mountain Range. Although the battle between Zemo and the execution guards had ended more than 4 hours ago, the enthusiasm of the cultivators did not diminish at all. If nothing went wrong, news of the change in the Immortal sect selection this time round would definitely spread through Divine Firmament mainland. Look, what's going on over there? He encountered Lifephone and the others again. These people truly have a death wish. To think that they would take the initiative to surround him. When Zemo first descended in the valley, he was surrounded by Lifephone and the others. At that time, none of the cultivators thought that he would be able to come out alive. But now that more than 20 days had passed, against this scene that seemed like it was yesterday, everyone's opinions were worlds apart. Many cultivators looked at Lifephone and the others with pity in their eyes. Lifefeng's group had managed to survive till this day. If nothing went wrong, apart from Lifephone, one other person could have entered the top 100. But now that they targeted Zemo, the outcome was imaginable. In the valley, dozens of cultivators rushed forward and surrounded Zemo tightly. All of them had burning gazes and wanted nothing more than to skin him alive. "Fellow Taoist, you look unfamiliar." A cultivator with a fat head asked with a smile. "Is that so?" Surveying his surroundings, Zemo said with a fake smile, "Everyone looks familiar. I should have seen you before." Ha 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 ha. The dozens of cultivators in the surroundings burst into laughter. A cultivator said smugly, "Guys, do you see that? We're quite famous in this valley after joining forces. This person knows us as well." The first fat cultivator raised his head slightly and asked, "Fellow Taoist, how many coiling dragon badges have you obtained in the past year?" "More than 1,200. Zemo did not hide anything and said frankly. The eyes of the surrounding cultivators lit up. If some of them could obtain the 1,200-odd coiling dragon badges, they might even have a chance of breaking through to 1,800. Even Lifephone, who was resting with his eyes closed not far away, was slightly surprised. He glanced over with a slit in his eyes. "Man, I was right. He's indeed a juicy piece of meat." The fat cultivator was grinning from ear to ear in a smug manner. "Fu. Zemo laughed as well. "Idiot, why are you laughing with us?" Suddenly, a menacing expression appeared on the fat cultivator's face as he strode forward and raised his hand to slap Zemo's face. His fat and thick palm created an evil gust of wind. The fat cultivator did not hold back at all. He wanted to kill Zemo right here without even giving the latter a chance to activate his coiling dragon badges. The smile on Zemo's face did not diminish as he struck as well, slapping the fat cultivator's face. That palm strike was even faster and more ferocious. Even the fat cultivator opposite him could not react, let alone the surrounding cultivators. His palm was only halfway through when Zemo's slap landed on his fat face. Piak. It was clear that the fat cultivator's face had broken bones and half of his face was caved in as flesh splattered everywhere. That slap shattered the fat cultivator's essence spirit. The fat corpse smashed into the crowd with such a terrifying power that the bones of 2 other cultivators were shattered. Since this person did not hold back, there was no way Zemo would show mercy either. After killing that person, Zemo took advantage of the stunned expressions of the surrounding cultivators to attack once more. He lunged into the crowd and started a massacre. In melee combat, even the execution guards with the black gold feather armor were not Suzumo's match. The difference between him and this group of cultivators was even greater. Although the cultivators were not weak in combat, they could only be considered as a motley crew compared to the iron-blooded, disciplined, and coordinated execution guards. Suzumo charged forward and crushed everything in his path. Anyone who fought him head-on would either die or be injured. The battlefield was in chaos as tragic cries sounded repeatedly and a blood mist spread. The initial smugness on the faces of the dozens of cultivators vanished and was replaced by endless fear. What sort of an existence had they provoked? Buzz. Buzz. Some severely injured cultivators did not dare to linger on the battlefield and activated their coiling dragon badges to teleport away. How dare you? When Lai Feng saw that the group had suffered immense losses, he could not help but soar into the air in rage. He led the remaining dozens of cultivators and swarmed forward, releasing divine powers, secret skills, immortal arts, and dermic treasures that weaved into a huge net that enveloped Suzumo. A glint flashed through Suzumo's eyes as he conjured hand seals repeatedly. Suddenly, a resplendent starry sky appeared above his head. Most of the starry skies were dim. However, there were also millions of bright stars that were descending and gushing into Suzumo's body continuously. Every single one of Suzumo's orifices shone with starlight and his aura surged. The mystic spirit Big Dipper diagram had descended. Bang, bang, bang. Suzumo's combat strength increased exponentially with the mystic spirit Big Dipper diagram above his head. He could fight against the many divine powers and dermic treasures that descended barehanded without being disadvantaged. Once Suzumo closed in, those cultivators would not be able to defend at all. Lai Feng released 2 or 3 divine powers and secret skills in succession, but could not injure Suzumo at all. Instead, the distance between the two of them decreased. A wary look flashed through Lai Feng's eyes, and he wanted to retreat. He had enough coiling dragon badges in his storage bag, and there was no need for him to fight to the death with this unknown ruthless person. As for the cultivators gathered around him, he did not care about them at all. The immortal sect selection was about to end, and there was no need for him to implicate himself for the sake of these cultivators. At that thought, Lai Feng made up his mind and declared, "Fellow Taoist, I'm impressed by your extraordinary methods. However, I don't wish to fight you to the death right now. Let's part ways today. If there's a chance, we'll definitely fight in the future." Suzumo smiled indifferently. "Haven't you been searching for me for the past few days? Why are you leaving again after bumping into me today?" "Why you are?" Lai Feng's expression changed when he heard that. The only person he had been searching for the past few days was that sickly young man. Could that person be the sickly invalid? Suzumo's gaze intensified as he suddenly released ethereal wings, zephyr thunder wings, boundless golden light, heavenly feet, and other divine powers and secret skills. His speed increased exponentially. A phantom passed through the gaps between many sabers and swords and charged towards Lai Feng. "It's indeed you." Lai Feng was shocked and exclaimed. He was extremely familiar with such a movement technique and burst speed. "You're not worthy of challenging me." In the blink of an eye, Suzumo arrived before Lai Feng. With a loud shout, he flipped his palm and grabbed the ladder. A sword chi storm condensed in his palm. The moment it descended, it exploded. Countless white sword chi splattered everywhere, piercing into the crowd and causing wails. Every single sword chi was the heaven-slaying sword chi. That killing power swept through the battlefield and was invincible. Lai Feng, who was right in front of him, was the first to be struck. Chapter 2133, 2133, Heaven Immortal Intervention. 2133, Heaven Immortal Intervention. Lai Feng roared and channeled his essence spirit wildly to condense a defensive divine power. However, the moment his greater divine power was released, it was penetrated by many heaven-slaying sword chi. Poof, poof, poof. Although Lai Feng managed to survive the calamity and avoid fatal damage, his body was still riddled with holes by the heaven-slaying sword chi, and blood gushed out in an extremely tragic manner. Lai Feng was indignant. If he had not met Su Zimo, given the number of coiling dragon badges in his storage bag, he would definitely be able to enter the top 100 and join the 4 immortal sections. However, he knew very well that if he continued to linger here, he might be killed by Su Zimo on the spot. He was still rational and could tell which was more important. Lai Feng could only activate his coiling dragon badge as a glow surged around him. Su Zimo sneered, "You can't even withstand a single move from me, and you want to fight me?" When Lai Feng heard that, his body swayed slightly and he nearly fainted. He was also a Grade 9 Earth Immortal and a paragon of the Immortal sex selection. He had never suffered such a blow. However, he did not refute and did not even have any thoughts of resisting. The person before him was only a Grade 6 Earth Immortal. Lai Feng knew that he would never be able to catch up to this person in his lifetime. With Lai Feng's departure, the remaining cultivators could not hold on at all and were defeated by Su Zimo. One after another, they activated their coiling dragon badges and left the valley. Therefore, a spectacular scene appeared outside the valley. In an extremely short period of time, cultivators fell onto Coiling Dragon Mountain Range one after another. In the valley, a large number of Coiling Dragon badges floated on the battlefield. After those cultivators left, the Coiling Dragon badges would automatically stay in the valley. After the battle ended, there were close to 4,000 Coiling Dragon badges left. Su Zimo waved his sleeves and kept all the Coiling Dragon badges. Including the Coiling Dragon badges he had obtained previously, he had already collected more than 5,000. After that battle, Su Zimo became the person with the most number of Coiling Dragon badges. In midair, Yang Ruoxu focused his gaze and pondered for a long time before saying slowly, "If I'm not wrong, the sword chi released by Su Zimo earlier on." He wanted to speak, but hesitated. Heaven-slaying. Heaven Abyss spat out 2 words. It's the heaven-slaying sword art. No wonder. Heaven Immortal White Sea and Heaven Immortal Green Peak were shocked and revealed enlightened expressions. Even in the upper world, the 3 great sword arts were extremely famous. The reason why Yun Ting could sweep through every one of the same cultivation realm was because of the human-slaying sword art that he cultivated. Of course, among the 3 great sword arts, human-slaying reigned supreme. Hee. Heaven Immortal White Sea seemed to have thought of something and suddenly smiled. Interesting. There's a chance that the 3 lost sword arts can be gathered in this generation. There's probably going to be a fierce battle between Su Zimo and Yun Ting. There's still quite a gap between the 2 of them. Heaven Immortal Green Peak shook his head. Although this lad has many trump cards, I'm afraid he can't defend against Yun Ting's sharpness. Furthermore, the 2 of them are still a few cultivation realms apart. Given Yun Ting's endowment and talent, he'll definitely become an immortal king in the future if nothing goes wrong. In a few years, the few of us will probably be beneath him. Yang Ruoxu said, even if there's a gap between the 2 of them, Yun Ting is still the only monster incarnate superior to Su Zimo all these years. The 4 Heaven Immortals chatted openly without reservations. At the side, Prince Yuan's expression was already extremely terrible. It was clear that the 4 Heaven Immortals were intending to protect Su Zimo. However, Prince Yuan's did not give up. As long as Su Zimo had not joined the 4 immortal sects, he could not be considered as someone from them. The immortal sect selection continued. The remaining few days were uneventful and the top 100 cultivators were basically confirmed without any changes. The top 3 were Su Zimo, Princess Scarlet Rainbow, and Prince Yunlei. A few days later, the immortal sect selection ended. The water barrier in the valley faded slowly. After a year, the barrier between the valley and Coiling Dragon Mountain Range had finally dissipated. "Everyone, come on up," Heaven Immortal Green Peak declared. The top 100 cultivators in the valley rose slowly into the air and advanced towards the formation of the 4 immortal sections. Su Zimo. When Prince Yuan's saw Su Zimo in the crowd, his eyes seemed to spew out 2 flames. When Prince Yuan's were recalled how the 100-odd execution guards he brought with him were killed in the valley, as well as Su Zimo's provocative gesture, the rationality he had just regained was drowned by hatred and anger once more. Prince Yuan's could no longer hold it in. With a deep growl, he released a supreme divine power. Firmament Slash. Prince Yuan's used his palm like a saber and slashed in Su Zimo's direction. One could only comprehend Firmament Slash after comprehending saber techniques to their limits. A blinding white light tore through the horizon, leaving a deep scar in the firmaments as though a heavenly saber had slashed across. It could even slice the firmaments into two. The supreme divine power, Firmament Slash, was the most ferocious and lethal. The moment Prince Yuan's were attacked, he did not give Su Zimo any chance of survival. Initially, he thought of capturing Su Zimo alive. However, the current conditions clearly did not allow it. He might as well kill Su Zimo with a single slash to vent the hatred in his heart. At the same time, Lone Star at the side suddenly attacked. He reached out in Su Zimo's direction. His palm looked ordinary. However, a gigantic hand that shone with a dark golden light appeared in midair and enveloped Su Zimo, as though it could pluck the stars and take away the moon. The supreme divine power, Star-Plucking Hand. The fact that it could even pluck the stars in the firmaments was proof of how terrifying that supreme divine power was. That star-plucking hand was enough to destroy the world. The reason why the two Grade 9 Heaven Immortals attacked at the same time and released supreme divine powers was because they wanted to kill Su Zimo completely. Heaven Abyss harumphed coldly and suddenly slashed forward. A gigantic abyss chasm laid across the world with a sinister wind that was dark and deep. The cold light conjured by Firmament Slash descended and sank into the abyss before it could injure Su Zimo at all. Boom, boom, boom. Immediately after, the abyss dissipated. The power of Firmament Slash sank as well. Star-Plucking Hand was not blocked and tore through the air, covering the skies. Yang Ruoxu raised his hand gently and his robes fluttered, as though there was a universe within that could accommodate all living beings. Supreme Divine Power, Sleeve Universe. That supreme divine power was related to space and seemed to have no killing power and limited uses. However, when released by Yang Ruoxu, it revealed endless profundities and could even accommodate Star-Plucking Hand. It seemed like it could encompass everything. Star-Plucking Hand descended and was absorbed by Sleeve Universe before it even landed on Su Zimo. In the blink of an eye, the four Heaven Immortal experts had already exchanged blows once, causing the world to change. The surrounding clouds rumbled and essence chi surged. The initially noisy coiling Dragon Mountain range turned silent in the blink of an eye. The Heaven Immortal experts were fighting. One side represented the four immortal sects while the other side represented a prince of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom. Be it in terms of status or backing, both parties were shockingly strong. Chapter 2134 2134 Appearance of a Perfected Immortal 2134 Appearance of a Perfected Immortal. When he saw that, Su Zimo felt slightly relieved. If not for the Heaven Immortal experts of the four immortal sects, it would be difficult for him to escape this calamity even if he used all his trump cards. What are you guys doing? Prince Yuanzwa glared at Heaven Abyss and Yang Ruoxu and questioned sternly. What are you doing? Yang Ruoxu asked indifferently. Although Heaven Immortal Green Peak at the side did not attack, he sneered at that moment. Prince Yuanzwa, although your status is noble, don't forget where we are. If you want to do whatever you want, return to your Great Gene Immortal Kingdom. Heaven Abyss spoke slowly with an unfriendly tone as well. Prince Yuanzwa grit his teeth. This lad killed so many execution guards of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom. No matter where he goes, both me and the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom will not let him off. Lone Star said in a deep voice, Fellow Taoists, you witnessed everything in the valley personally. Are you still going to protect him? Heaven Immortal White Sea waved his folding fan and smiled gently. Your Highness, please calm down. In my opinion, This person is truly not to blame for this matter. After all, these execution guards were the ones who took the initiative to enter the valley to hunt down Suzumo. They can blame nobody but themselves for their deaths. Anyone who kills is bound to be killed. Heaven Immortal White Sea was from Flying Immortal Sect and was in the same Immortal Sect as Princess Ming Yao. At that moment, even Heaven Immortal White Sea stood out to speak up for Suzumo. The situation was extremely unfavorable. Prince Yuan's face was ashen as he laughed out of anger. In that case, it's my fault? I didn't say that. Heaven Immortal White Sea shook his head gently with a smile on his face still. Heaven Immortal Green Peak waved his hand and ignored Prince Yuan's. Let's begin selecting people. The final 100 people for the Immortal Sect selection had already been selected. Next, the 4 Immortal Sects would select their candidates according to the number of Coiling Dragon badges. If 2 or more Immortal Sects took a liking to someone at the same time, the person would make the choice themselves. The sect they joined would depend on their choice. The person with the most Coiling Dragon badges, Suzumo, come to the front. Heaven Immortal Green Peak said in a deep voice. Suzumo walked out of the crowd and came before everyone. Introduce yourself briefly. Your background, family history, as well as martial arts lineage. Heaven Immortal Green Peak said. I'm Suzumo from the lower worlds. Suzumo did not hide anything and said frankly. When he said that, a commotion broke out throughout Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, and many cultivators were already whispering. What a pathetic background. To think that he's a lowlife. When I saw how capable he was, I thought that he was from some prestigious family and was hunted down and suppressed because he offended the great Gene Immortal Kingdom. So what if he's from the lower worlds? His methods are unyielding and he's number 1 in the Immortal Sect selection this time round. Fufu. So what if he's number 1? So what if he joined the 4 Immortal Sects? Back then, Feng Cantillon was even a disciple of an immortal emperor. In the end, didn't he still have to flee for his life everywhere? Suzumo could clearly notice that the millions of cultivators below were not the only ones. Many cultivators of the 4 Immortal Sects revealed looks of contempt and mockery as well. The 4 Heaven Immortals had calm expressions and did not reveal such emotions. Not only that, Yang Ruoxu looked at Suzumo with a hint of admiration and encouragement. You guys heard it too. Prince Yuan's was said in a deep voice. Suzumo is just an inferior and worthless lowlife. Fellow Taoists, why don't you give me some face? Heroes can come from anywhere. Yang Ruoxu turned to look at Prince Yuan's. I, Yang Ruoxu, am also from the lower worlds. In your eyes, am I also inferior and worthless? Suzumo was slightly surprised. It was no wonder why Yang Ruoxu gave him that look earlier on. The crowd below was in an uproar. Most cultivators did not know Yang Ruoxu's background at all. Prince Yuan's was stunned as well. There was no way he knew that Yang Ruoxu was from the lower worlds. Although his words earlier on were targeted at Suzumo, he insulted Yang Ruoxu as well. Yang Ruoxu ignored Prince Yuan's and said in a deep voice, Heaven and Earth Academy intends to accept Suzumo. The 3 of you can make your choice. Mountain Sea Immortal Sect wants him. Heaven Abyss did not say much, but his tone was resolute and did not hesitate. Heaven Immortal Green Peak followed closely behind. Imperial Wind Temple wants him. Heaven Immortal White Sea hesitated for a moment before saying with a smile, Flying Immortal Sect is interested as well. The 4 Immortal Sects wanted him at the same time. If it was just ordinary cultivators, the 4 Heaven Immortals might not have had such a direct conflict with Prince Yuan's. However, Suzumo's performance was way too striking. This was a 1 in a million monster incarnate. Furthermore, Suzumo inherited many divine powers and secret skills such as the Mystic Spirit Big Dipper Diagram and the Heaven-Slaying Sword Art. His future accomplishments were immeasurable. Since the 4 Immortal Sects are interested in you, it's up to you. Yang Ruoxu nodded to Suzumo. Hold on. Prince Yuan's interrupted hurriedly. If Suzumo were to officially join the 4 Immortal Sects, there would be even less reason for him to attack. Fellow Taoist Yuan's, is there anything else you want to say? Heaven Immortal Green Peak frowned slightly and asked impatiently. Prince Yuanzhua took a deep breath and composed himself. He bowed slightly to the 4 Heaven Immortals and was sufficiently polite. As a prince of the great Gene Immortal Kingdom, he had never bowed to a cultivator of the same cultivation realm. Fellow Taoists, please hand this person over to me. I, Yuanzhua, can swear that if you have any requests in the future, I'll definitely do my best and not let you down. Prince Yuanzhua said in a deep voice, as long as the 4 of you agree not to take him in as a disciple, I'll definitely reward you immensely. If you need anything, feel free to let me know. Prince Yuanzhua did not hide his words and said them in front of everyone. He was extremely sincere. The promise of a prince was not to be ignored, even if he was one who was relatively down and out. Furthermore, there might even be treasures as gifts. Prince Yuanzhua's sacrifice was definitely worth it. As long as he could capture Su Zimo, he might be able to obtain the many divine powers, secret skills, and jade talismans in Su Zimo's body. At that time, his chances of breaking through to the perfected immortal realm would be much higher. Heaven Immortal White Sea waved his folding fan gently with a smile. Heaven Abyss's expression was grim. Yang Ruoxu lowered his eyes with an indifferent expression. Heaven Immortal Green Peak was unmoved. The 4 Heaven Immortals had different expressions, but none of them expressed anything, leaving Prince Yuanzhua on the spot. Time passed bit by bit. The longer things dragged on, the uglier Prince Yuanzhua's expression was, and the more awkward the situation became. Prince Yuanzhua clenched his fists and grit his teeth. Although he had already let go of his dignity, the 4 Heaven Immortals had no intention of giving in. Right then, a figure sped over from afar at a shocking speed. In the blink of an eye, he arrived before them. It was a middle-aged man with gray hair. Every single move he made exuded an invisible might. The moment that person appeared, he stood in midair and his aura overwhelmed all the cultivators present. Even the 4 Heaven Immortals could not compare to him. This was a perfected immortal expert. Although everyone could not detect the middle-aged man's cultivation realm, they could vaguely determine it. When Su Zimo saw that person, he frowned and his expression changed slightly. He was certain that this was a perfected immortal. This was the former Green Cloud County Governor, perfected immortal Jingyu. Chapter 2135, 2135 at odds, 2135 at odds. Within a carriage in the crowd. The girl said softly, Princess, you were right. Indeed, something unexpected happened. Even a perfected immortal has appeared. The plain-robed woman acknowledged and continued looking at the skies. A commotion broke out in the surrounding crowd. The immortal sect selection only selected Earth Immortals. Be it the 4 immortal sects or the cultivators watching the battle, the strongest were Heaven Immortal experts. No matter which faction or world a perfected immortal expert was in, they were pillars of support and had noble statuses. Initially, Heaven Abyss, Yang Ruoxu, and the other 2 Heaven Immortals reigned supreme for the factions, and all parties could maintain a balance. The descent of a perfected immortal broke that balance instantly. The 4 Heaven Immortals frowned when they saw that person. Prince Yuanzhua was delighted and hurried forward. Jingyu, you're finally here. Both Prince Yuanzhua and perfected immortal Jingyu suffered a huge blow because of Feng Cantillon. Prince Yuanzhua lost the territory of Green Cloud County, and perfected immortal Jingyu lost his position as the county governor. Of course, the 2 of them had interacted for many years and had some ties after all. Before Prince Yuanzhua received the mysterious letter and headed here, he sent a message to perfected immortal Jingyu. He had already vaguely guessed that there was a high chance they would encounter many obstacles in Coiling Dragon Mountain Range. That was the reason why he planned before making a move and invited perfected immortal Jingyu out of seclusion to preside over the situation for him. Prince Yuanzhua was scheming and extremely smart. Otherwise, he would not have been able to become the prince in charge of Green Cloud County back then. He was even able to hide his true strength and confuse the world with a clone he cultivated. However, for some reason, He was plagued by bad luck all these years and suffered setbacks. Prince Yuanzhou blamed everything on Su Zimo. Your Highness, I was delayed by something and came a little late. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu cupped his fists towards Prince Yuanzhou and said in a deep voice, You're not late. You came at the right time. Prince Yuanzhou pointed at Su Zimo, who was not far away, and said hatefully, This sinner killed more than 100 execution guards of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom in front of everyone. Right now, he's about to join the 4 immortal sections. We must capture him. If he manages to escape under my watch after killing so many execution guards, what will become of the reputation of our Great Jin Immortal Kingdom? More than 100 execution guards died. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu's expression darkened. He was the one who first discovered Su Zimo and brought him to Absolute Thunder City. That was the reason for the series of changes later on. If this matter was traced back to its origin, it would be difficult for him to escape responsibility. Therefore, even though he knew that it was inappropriate for a perfected immortal to appear for the immortal sect selection, he still came. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu knew one thing as well. Although he was a perfected immortal, it would be difficult for him to make a move if Su Zimo were to join the 4 immortal sections. As his thoughts raced, Perfected Immortal Jing Yu looked at the 4 heaven immortals and cupped his fists. Greetings, I'm Jing Yu. Greetings, Exalted Immortal. The 4 heaven immortals did not dare to be rude and stood up one after another. Although Perfected Immortal Jing Yu was not the Green Cloud County governor, he was still an expert among perfected immortals. The 4 heaven immortals had heard of him before. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. I know that it'll be difficult for the 4 of you to explain things if you hand Su Zimo over. How about this? The 4 of you, please give me some face. It's fine as long as you guys do not recruit this person on behalf of the 4 immortal sections. As long as no one from the 4 immortal sects recruited Su Zimo, Prince Yuanzhou could naturally attack without any reservations. The only thing he was wary of were the 4 immortal sections. A perfected immortal had appeared to demand Su Zimo. The reputation of a perfected immortal expert was completely different from Prince Yuanzhou. Perfected immortals represented another level of power. Even if the 4 heaven immortals were unwilling, they could not express it directly and go against Perfected Immortal Jing Yu head-on. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu continued, As long as the 4 of you are willing to agree, I won't decline if you look for me in the future for anything. The promise of a perfected immortal carried even more weight. It's over for Su Zimo. A perfected immortal of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom has appeared and wants to capture him at all costs. That's expected as well. Think about it. How can a lowlife who offended a prince and killed so many execution guards survive? Many cultivators shook their heads emotionally. In midair, Su Zimo remained silent with a calm expression. The current situation no longer had anything to do with him. In other words, his life and death depended on a single thought of theirs. Since Exalted Immortal Jing Yu said that, I'll withdraw on behalf of Flying Immortal Sect. Heaven Immortal White Sea smiled gently and cupped his fists. Now that a perfected immortal had appeared, there was no need for him to continue pressing the matter. Furthermore, Zither Immortal Meng Yao was from the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom. If he took a step back first, he could consider that a favor as well. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu nodded slightly with a smile. Not long ago, I even met Princess Meng Yao. If we meet again, I'll speak up for you in front of her. Thank you, Exalted Immortal. Heaven Immortal White Sea was delighted. It was enough if he could leave a good impression on Zither Immortal Meng Yao because of this. What do the 3 of you think? Perfected Immortal Jing Yu swept his gaze towards Heaven Abyss, Yang Ruoxu, and Heaven Immortal Green Peak. There was a hint of pressure in his tone and gaze. Heaven Abyss's expression was still grim. Yang Ruoxu's expression was indifferent as he lowered his head. Heaven Immortal Green Peak looked restless and uneasy. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu had been famous for a long time, and the people he befriended were all perfected immortal experts. In other words, only legacy disciples of Imperial Wind Temple were qualified to speak to him. who knew if perfected Immortal Jingyu had any ties with any legacy disciple of Imperial Wind Temple. It was truly not worth it to offend a legacy disciple of the sect because of this. Suddenly, Heaven Immortal Green Peak smiled. My side is easygoing, it's fine whether or not we recruit him. Exalted Immortal, it's better if you ask the other two about their stances. Heaven Immortal Green Peak set a trap. In reality, he did not say explicitly that he was not recruiting Su Zimo. Instead, he pushed the responsibility to Heaven Abyss and Yang Ruoxu. If Heaven Abyss and Yang Ruoxu backed off, he would not insist either and would go with the flow. If Heaven Abyss or Yang Ruoxu did not back off, Perfected Immortal Jingyu's attention would shift to the two of them. Perfected Immortal Jingyu sneered internally. Although he could tell what Heaven Immortal Green Peak was thinking, he did not expose him. Instead, he shifted his gaze towards Heaven Abyss and Yang Ruoxu. I don't agree. Heaven Abyss suddenly spoke. Many cultivators were invigorated, and their eyes lit up. He was taking it head-on. A Heaven Immortal expert of Mountain Sea Immortal Sect and a perfected Immortal of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom were at odds. At that moment, Su Zimo became nervous as well. When he came to take part in the Immortal Sect selection this time round, his inclination was towards Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. On the Dragon Abyss Star, he had conflicts with legacy disciples of the other three Immortal sections. Although he did not expose his identity, he felt hesitant internally. Su Zimo did not care if Flying Immortal Sect withdrew. At the very least, Mountain Sea Immortal Sect was still around. Perfected Immortal Jingyu glared at Heaven Abyss with a dark gaze and said slowly, Heaven Abyss, the number one of the previous Heaven ranking. Ferocious methods, dominating personality, and completely fearless. I've long heard of you. Now that I've seen it for myself, you truly live up to your reputation. Although Perfected Immortal Jingyu praised Heaven Abyss openly, there was a hint of coldness in his tone. Chapter 2136, 2136 Shameless. 2136 Shameless. You flatter me. Heaven Abyss was expressionless and fearless. Exalted Immortal, before you descended, I've already decided to recruit this person. If I give up just because of a single sentence from you, others will think that Mountain Sea Immortal Sect is afraid of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom. That will be bad for our sect's reputation. Although Heaven Abyss rarely spoke, he was extremely smart. He knew that given his status and cultivation realm, he could not fight against Perfected Immortal Jingyu. Therefore, he referred to his backing, Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. Heaven Abyss's words were akin to hiding needles in cotton wool. Perfected Immortal Jingyu's expression darkened. If Heavenly Abyss truly wanted to go against him head-on, there was nothing he could do. There was no way he could kill Heaven Abyss in front of everyone. Heaven Abyss was not a nobody. If he attacked rashly and bullied the young, he would definitely offend Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. At that time, Mountain Sea Immortal Sect might even send perfected immortal experts to look for him. One of the four great fairies, the Chess Immortal, was in the Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. The Chess Immortal had a domineering personality and loved to fight. Although the four great fairies had not fought openly, there were long rumors that the Chess Immortal was the strongest among the four of them. Perfected Immortal Jingyu narrowed his eyes slightly with a dark expression, seemingly plotting something. Instantly, the entire Coiling Dragon Mountain range turned extremely quiet. The atmosphere was a little stifling. Suddenly, Su Zimo felt a strong sense of danger, as though he was targeted by some terrifying figure and could face a calamity at any moment. This is bad. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Perfected Immortal Jingyu was wary of the Mountain Sea Immortal Sect and did not dare to attack Heaven Abyss. However, Perfected Immortal Jingyu could ignore others and attack him. Mountain Sea Immortal Sect would cause trouble for Perfected Immortal Jingyu if Heaven Abyss was suppressed. However, Su Zimo had yet to join the Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. Even if Perfected Immortal Jingyu killed him in public, Mountain Sea Immortal Sect would not have any conflict with Perfected Immortal Jingyu because of him, a Grade 6 Earth Immortal who had ascended from the lower worlds. within the carriage. The girl whispered, "Princess, Suzimo's luck is not bad. Thankfully, Heavenly Abyss has the guts to stand out and withstand the pressure of perfected Immortal Jingyu. Otherwise, he would be in trouble. Even if Heaven Abyss backs off, Yang Ruoxu will stand out." The plain-robed woman shook her head gently. Yang Ruoxu can be considered as a rising star of Heaven and Earth Academy. Although he's not the #1 Heaven Immortal of the Academy, he's upright and cultivated the Righteousness Sutra. He came from a lowly background, and it's truly not easy for him to reach this point. Pausing for a moment, she continued, "However, with the descent of a perfected Immortal, Heaven Abyss and the other three are no longer able to control the situation." Fufufu. Ha 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 ha. Right then, perfected Immortal Jingyu, who was in midair, suddenly laughed. His voice grew louder, and many cultivators felt their ears buzz with a sharp pain. The laughter gradually stopped, and perfected Immortal Jingyu said coldly, "Heavenly Abyss, it's fine if you don't give me face." He changed the topic and looked at Suzimo, who was not far away, saying slowly, "However, I'm going to suppress that lad in public today. Who can stop me?" The expressions of Heaven Abyss, Yang Ruoxu, and the others changed. As perfected Immortal Jingyu had said, if he were to attack forcefully, no one would be able to stop him here. The difference between a perfected Immortal and a Heaven Immortal was way too great. Furthermore, perfected Immortal Jingyu was an expert among perfected Immortals. There were 9 levels to the Black, Earth, and Heaven Essence realms. However, after the 3 essences converged into the perfected 1 realm, there were only 4 levels. Every single level was a huge gap. Perfected Immortal Jingyu had at least cultivated to level 3 of the perfected 1 realm. Even if the previous number 1 of the Heaven ranking was gathered, he would not be able to defend against perfected Immortal Jingyu, let alone Heaven Abyss and the other 3. "Jingyu, hurry and capture Suzimo." Prince Yuan Zhua was delighted and invigorated. "Your Highness, please calm down. Since I've already decided to attack, this lad won't be able to escape." The moment he said that, perfected Immortal Jingyu waved his robes, and a gigantic dark golden palm extended from his wide and pitch-black sleeves, enveloping Suzimo. The Supreme Divine Power, Star-Plucking Hand. When released by a perfected Immortal, the same Supreme Divine Power created a completely different scene and might. The gigantic hand covered the skies and was filled with a dark golden glow. It fiddled with the galaxy as though it had come from the ancient era and wanted to suppress the world and punish all living beings. Against the might of that gigantic hand, it was already rare for anyone to not kneel on the ground, let alone resist. Heaven Abyss had an indignant expression as he growled and released a supreme divine power. At the same time, Yang Ruoxu at the side attacked once more. The 2 Heaven Immortals resisted the might of perfected Immortal Jingyu and wanted to block the gigantic hand in midair. However, their supreme divine powers dissipated when they collided with perfected Immortal Jingyu's star-plucking hand. It was like a moth flying into a flame without causing any ripples. The difference was too great. As perfected Immortal Jingyu had said, no one could stop him if he attacked. How shameless to bully the weak. Suddenly, a voice sounded from the battlefield. Right on the heels of that, a divine light suddenly descended, and no one could see how or where it came from. It was completely imperceivable. However, it appeared in midair and slashed down at the star-plucking hand that shone with starlight. Shing! The divine light streaked across the star-plucking hand and sliced the gigantic hand into 2 with an ear-piercing sound. Boom! 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 Right in front of many cultivators, the hand that was sliced into 2 collapsed and shattered rapidly. After a momentary silence, the entire coiling Dragon Mountain range was in an uproar. Perfected Immortal Jingyu's attack was resolved by someone. Apart from perfected Immortal Jingyu, there were other perfected Immortal experts here. Who is there? Perfected Immortal Jingyu's heart skipped a beat as he surveyed his surroundings and asked loudly with a sharp gaze. Nobody replied. Perfected Immortal Jingyu had a grim expression. It was normal for this person to be able to neutralize his supreme divine power. However, He could not even tell the origin of the divine light earlier on or sense the location of this person. That was a little terrifying. This meant that there was a high chance this person was much stronger than him. Who could this person be? Why would this person appear in Coiling Dragon Mountain Range? Why did this person want to save Suzimo? Why did this person not appear after attacking? Doubts flashed through Perfected Immortal Jing Yu's mind in the blink of an eye. The person's voice earlier on was erratic. Not only could he not identify the voice, he could not even tell if it was a man or woman. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu's reaction surprised many cultivators present. A Perfected Immortal attacked earlier on, but Perfected Immortal Jing Yu could not find where the person was. Suzimo was puzzled as well after escaping this calamity. Even he could not imagine that any Perfected Immortal in the heavenly world would help him. The only Perfected Immortal he knew was Feng Zi's master, Burial Knight. However, this person's style was way too different from Burial Knight. If it was Burial Knight, he would have launched an assassination attempt on Perfected Immortal Jing Yu directly. Why would he say something like, "How shameless to bully the weak"? Chapter 2137, 2137 Sound of the Strings. 2137 Sound of the Strings. Within the carriage, the girl covered her mouth and stifled her laughter, sending a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness. "Princess, well scolded. That person is way too shameless. He's clearly a Perfected Immortal expert, but he wants to attack an Earth Immortal." Because the girl was closer to Prince Yunting, she was displeased with Suzimo. However, she despised Perfected Immortal Jing Yu's actions even more. The plain-robed woman smiled indifferently. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu surveyed his surroundings and sneered with a mocking expression. "Sir, aren't you being too shameless by hiding? How shameless to bully the weak." The voice sounded once more erratically, and everyone present was shocked. No one could discover the location of the person who spoke. However, this time round, everyone heard it clearly. It was a woman. Suzimo recalled carefully. He had never heard that voice before. He should not know this person. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu was secretly frustrated and said in a deep voice, "Since you want to be a busybody, why don't you show yourself? Let me see who you are as well. You can't even find me, and you think you're worthy of me appearing?" The woman's tone was indifferent with a hint of disdain. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu fell silent with a terrible expression. "What are you thinking about? Why aren't you attacking yet?" Prince Yuanzhua was still concerned about Suzimo and wanted Perfected Immortal Jing Yu to attack once more to capture Suzimo alive. "Your Highness, there's an expert here." Perfected Immortal Jing Yu said bitterly, "Even if I attack with my full strength, I'm probably not a match for this person. We might have to return fruitless today." Actually, there was something that Perfected Immortal Jing Yu did not say. In fact, he suspected that the person who attacked earlier on was the Chess Immortal of Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. Although the four great fairies had different personalities, none of them were easy to deal with. More than 2,000 years ago, he had suffered a loss against one of them. Back then, an ice butterfly appeared outside Glass City beneath Green Cloud County. He chased after it and severely injured it. Unexpectedly, the ice butterfly escaped with serious injuries and attracted Perfected Immortals of many factions to descend and fight for it. In the end, the ice butterfly was saved by one of the four great fairies, the Painting Immortal. At that time, they were in the territory of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom after all. Perfected Immortal Jing Yu was unwilling to let the Painting Immortal take the ice butterfly away. Therefore, he fought the latter and suffered a crushing defeat. It was said that the Painting Immortal of the four great fairies had a calm personality and did not like to fight. She was the weakest among the four great fairies. Even so, Perfected Immortal Jing Yu was not her match. If the belligerent Chess Immortal had truly descended, he would have even less chance of winning. "We have to leave just like this?" Prince Yuanzhua's eyes were filled with deep indignation. Although Suzimo was not far away, he was helpless. He even invited a Perfected Immortal out of seclusion, but to no avail. Heaven Abyss and Yang Ruoxu heaved a sigh of relief. Heaven Abyss was in Mountain Sea Immortal sect with the Chess Immortal, and he knew more about the latter. He knew in his heart that the person who attacked earlier on could not have been the Chess Immortal. Given the domineering nature of the Chess Immortal, she would definitely not be secretive if she descended here and wanted to severely injure perfected Immortal Jingyu. However, no matter what, the person who attacked was helping them in secret. Heaven Abyss looked at Suzimo and said hurriedly, "Hurry and tell us. Between our Mountain Sea Immortal sect and Heaven and Earth Academy, who do you choose? Imperial Wind Temple as well?" At that moment, Heaven Immortal Green Peak jumped out in time when he saw that perfected Immortal Jingyu was disadvantaged. If the three Immortal sects wanted him at the same time, it would depend on Suzimo's final choice. "I choose." Suzimo had just said 2 words when a zither sound sounded in midair. The sound of the strings rustled and possessed a strange power, as though it was strumming the heartstrings of many cultivators. Suzimo could not say anything else. Even the massive coiling dragon mountain range turned silent against the sound of the zither. Immediately after, a figure walked over from the distant skies. Initially, it was far away. Before the sound of the zither dissipated completely, the figure had already arrived. It was a tall woman in plain blue palace robes. She was beautiful and flawless with an extraordinary aura. She had a cold expression and surveyed her surroundings, as though she was searching for someone. Cultivators who met the woman's gaze would either avert their gazes instinctively or lower their heads slightly. It was as though taking another look at this woman was a blasphemy to her. Zither Immortal Meng Yao. Only Zither Immortal Meng Yao could silence millions of cultivators in coiling Dragon Mountain range and have them behave respectfully with a single sound of the zither strings. "Princess, it's her," the girl said softly. The plain-robed woman frowned slightly and raised her hand to stop the girl from speaking. She looked at the figure in midair through the curtain of the carriage. "Greetings, Princess Meng Yao." When perfected Immortal Jingyu saw the woman in palace robes, he was delighted and hurried forward to bow. At the same time, he gave Prince Yuanzhua a look. Prince Yuanzhua was way too smart and reacted instantly. He ran over as well with reddened eyes and said tragically, "Sister Meng Yao, you're finally here." Actually, Prince Yuanzhua did not know that Zither Immortal Meng Yao would descend here. Even with his status, there was no way he could request Meng Yao to do anything. However, when he said that, it gave others the feeling that he was the reason why Zither Immortal Meng Yao came. "That's the Zither Immortal. She's truly beautiful." To think that the 4 great fairies Zither Immortal would be alerted to this immortal sex selection. This trip was truly worth it. The crowd below still did not dare to speak loudly as they whispered, as though they were afraid of disturbing the beauty. "Greetings, Fairy Meng Yao." Heaven Abyss, Yang Ruoxu, and Heaven Immortal Green Peak stood up and bowed. "Greetings, Senior Sister Meng Yao." Heaven Immortal White Sea put away his folding fan as well and reverently put away his playful expression. Meng Yao merely nodded slightly and asked, "Have you guys seen 2 people, a man and a woman, using dermic treasures in the form of a flute and zither as their weapons?" "Never." The 4 Heaven Immortals exchanged glances and shook their heads. Suzimo remained silent. He knew that Zither Immortal Meng Yao had descended here to hunt down Gu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo. However, the 2 of them did not participate in the immortal sex selection at all. Meng Yao was slightly disappointed when she did not see Gu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo. In a flash, she turned to leave. "Sister Meng Yao." Right then, Prince Yuan's was suddenly shouted. Meng Yao frowned slightly in impatience. When she saw that Prince Yuan's eyes were red as though he had suffered quite a bit and thought about how they shared the same father after all, she paused in her tracks and asked coldly, "What's wrong?" "Sister Meng Yao, there's someone here who might know where the 2 of them are." Prince Yuan's was suddenly said. Meng Yao's heart skipped a beat as she focused her gaze and asked in a deep voice, "Who is it?" "Him." Prince Yuan's pointed at Suzimo in the crowd and said sternly, "A few months ago, he was the one who killed the 13 execution guards outside Songyu City." "Mm." Meng Yao followed Prince Yuan's finger and looked over. The 13 execution guards were under her orders to hunt down Gu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo. If they were truly killed by an outsider, there was indeed a chance that this person knew the location of Gu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo. Even if he did not know, this person was definitely related to Gu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.